This guy, he has a legendary skill. His eyes turn dark and he sees absolutely everything. But before awakening, his life was trash. A week ago, it was a normal day. Then, a terrifying announcement on TV. In 2 months, the world would starve, and monsters, hungrier than humans, came to eat us. God was generous. Humans awakened. Still, almost everyone died. I stayed in my room. 3 months since the world outside ended. But being alone sucks. I'm the only one alive in this building. The worst part? No internet. I'm Kim Jae-hyun. My boredom ended the moment a monster appeared at my window. It looked like hell, with the ugliest mouth ever. I almost died, nearly crapped my pants, but it couldn't enter. No One Punch Man moment here. Why? My ability, my house, my rules. I'm the ultimate shut-in. No one gets in without my permission. This wasn't the first time. Guess I'll never die from a heart attack. Yeah, this power saved me, but it has a downside. I can't leave either. Stuck here since awakening. You think surviving is good? No internet, no girlfriend, no fun. The message, the ultimate shut-in can't leave, pisses me off. I can't do anything. Handsome, rich, and still single. Now it's worse. Food is running out. The fridge broke. Everything will rot. Will I die from being too safe? Then I saw it. My skill leveled up. I never thought about what leveling up even means. Maybe that monster that hit my window and died gave me EXP. Must be. Now that thing is lunch for other monsters down there. Then they acted weird. The ugly mouth monster turned to smoke. The system said a reward was sent. 2 million cash in my wallet. I had no idea what wallet meant, but the power coming back shocked me. Now electricity and water are back. A miracle. I can shower and stop stinking. Internet back? Nope. Damn it. Why not that too? My place is a mess. I found a flash drive. Didn't remember it. Checked it. Old family photos. Mom when I was born, so beautiful. Me at 5, cute and smiling. At 12, long hair. At 15, happier than ever. I wish my parents were here. I don't even know if they're alive. I decided I'll find them and I'll bring them here, no matter what. Went to the balcony, saw something new, a system window, level 1 shop. I saw that and thought it looked suspicious, so I tried using the shop. It said I had 2,003,000 cash, like a supermarket wallet. Then I tried opening the window to go outside. Still trapped. Can't leave the building. But I just realized something. I can level up by hunting monsters. Those creatures out there. If I kill them, I get stronger. Maybe if I level up enough, I can leave this place. But seeing those terrifying flying monsters, no way I can beat them. Actually, that one died on my window by itself. Maybe I can kill the goblins down there. They're way weaker. So I decided to test it. I'll throw this water bottle. Will it leave the building? Yes. Items can leave. I can't. In that case, I've got an idea. I'll throw something heavier and kill goblins from here. When I was ready to throw a dumbbell, the goblins started calling each other and ran away. Those bastards, they can't run now. I need to test this theory. So I threw the dumbbell with all my strength. Missed. My aim sucks. I've only got one left. Now what? No idea. Just one dumbbell left. Then I heard a noise. The damn goblins started screaming. They grouped up and ran toward the building. It was terrifying. All of them moving together in perfect sync. When they rushed at the building, I feared the worst. But maybe it's not that bad. If they come closer, it's easier for me to hit them. Then I had an idea. I opened the shop. My points were there. I asked it to list the available items. And just like I thought, the dumbbell was analyzed. The system listed it so I can buy more. And the price? Exactly the same as online. So it's like a virtual shop. I asked the system for more dumbbells. Bought them. They materialized in front of me. And the price was deducted from my account. This is insane. Maybe the people downstairs heard me screaming. I threw the dumbbell with all my strength and this time, I got lucky. Headshot on a goblin. System said I killed it and gained EXP. Also, 3,345 cash added to my account. The others were terrified, wondering what the hell fell from the sky. Dumbbells don't usually rain from above. I kept throwing more dumbbells, but now they were alert. Missed every shot. So I just kept buying more dumbbells and trying again. And with effort, I hit some of them. As a result, I kept leveling up more and more. The feeling is amazing. Then the system notified me. The ultimate shut-in unlocked storage level 1, an alternate dimension for storing items. To test it, I tried putting a dumbbell inside. It vanished from my hand, listed in storage, worked perfectly. I pulled it back out, right in my hand. Incredible. I can store anything and take it out anytime. So now I'll do something cruel. I filled the storage with dozens of dumbbells. Then I released them outside the building. A rain of dumbbells fell from the sky. The goblins couldn't escape. They were crushed. All of them. Dead. I'm amazed by my powers. I never knew they could be used like this. Now I found out I can analyze other items like food and buy them with shop money. But now I have a new problem. My money is limited. Also, the power bill keeps draining my money. And since I wiped out the goblins with dumbbells, no monsters have come near my apartment. No monsters means no money, no EXP. If nothing comes close, I'm screwed. I need a new way to kill monsters. While I was thinking, something appeared in the sky. And then I remembered. That thing from before. The one that attacked me. This is bad. That's a calican. A high-level monster. I ran to the kitchen, tied shiny spoons to a chair, and hung it outside to reflect light. It worked. The monster noticed and flew toward the building, ready to strike with that disgusting mouth. But this time, I wasn't scared. The barrier was still active. It can't break through. If it keeps going, it'll kill itself like the last one. More EXP for me. This one's smarter. It realized it couldn't pass, then it flew away. No way! But actually, it didn't leave. It landed on the roof. When I leaned out to look, holy crap. I almost crapped my pants again. It pecked one spot, hard. But the barrier is absolute. Nothing enters without the Supreme Shut-in's permission. I thought for a second. Then I pulled up the shop. If dumbbells can kill goblins, what kills a monster this huge? While it kept pecking, I had an idea. I spent cash on oil bottles. Perfect. Poured oil in pots and heated it. If boiling oil can kill anything, let's find out. Then I wrapped paper on sticks and dropped the boiling oil into storage. Lit the stick on fire. Time for the ultimate trick. The beast kept pecking the barrier. I shouted for the oil to drop from the sky. Storage opened above it. Boiling oil poured down. The monster screamed. I threw the burning stick. The oil ignited. Flames everywhere. It worked. Yes, that beast is fried chicken now. It crashed to the ground, burning, smelled awful, looked worse. When it finally died, the system popped up. Calican defeated. EXP gained. And my cash? Now I've got 9,347,000. The Supreme Shut-In is richer than ever. But then, something happened. I unlocked a requirement. My territory expanded. Not just my apartment, the whole building, and a new ability. At first it hurt. My vision glitched. Then, I saw the entire building, including the people below. A family sitting in their living room, sad, hungry. What the hell? My eyes feel weird. Who are they? After a few seconds, it faded. My eyes went back to normal. But now the system showed their info. A man, 30. A woman, 30. 2 daughters, 3 and 6. All eligible to become citizens of my territory. The system warned, non-citizens will be expelled. If I do nothing, they're out, and the monsters will kill them. So I granted them citizenship. Then I checked the ability, just as I thought. Supreme Eyes level 1. I can see everything in my territory. Nothing escapes. And in the system, the population list appeared. Currently, 4 citizens. Out of 600 slots available. 600? No way they fit in my apartment. Not even this building. Then I saw something amazing. Citizens share their power and EXP. If they fight and level up, I get a cut. Perfect. I'll get stronger faster. And now, missions unlocked, with time limits. If I fail, there's punishment. First mission, kill a goblin in 168 hours. Fail? The punishment says, your manhood falls off, which basically means death. Same thing. The system asked if I'd accept. I hesitated. I declined for now. Then I tested Supreme Eyes again. The world went dark. I could see the family below. The scene switched to them. The little girl asked her dad what they'd do. No food. The kids were starving. The dad felt crushed, watching his daughters hungry. But outside is hell. Going out could mean never coming back. Still, he had to try. He told his wife he'd go find food. She knew what it meant. If he stayed, they'd die. If he left, maybe they'd all die. But at least there's a chance. He got ready to leave. Said goodbye like it might be the last time. The kids cried, begging him not to go. When he was about to open the door, the handle turned by itself. They froze. Monsters? The door opened slowly. Light burst in. The dad grabbed a weapon ready to fight, but it wasn't a monster. He shouted for mercy, then saw me standing there. I'm here to help, I said. Water and food. They must be starving. They all stood in shock. How could someone show up to help? The father couldn't refuse. It was the only way to save his daughters. He invited me in. After that, the scene changes, and we see chubby Choi Hyung-jun's 2 kids hiding behind their dad, their suspicious eyes fixed on Jae-hyun. The 2 kids don't trust him at all. Meanwhile, chubby Hyung-jun, his wife, and the 2 children are sitting together at the table. Jae-hyun peels oranges, trying to break the tense atmosphere. He watches them in silence, wondering if he caused too much of a shock. However, as he looks around the room, Jae-hyun notices that it's completely empty. There's no food, no water, and no light. The curtains are tightly closed so they don't attract monsters. Jae-hyun agrees with himself, recognizing it was a good idea. Deciding to help even more, Jae-hyun focuses on the room's ceiling light. His eyes begin to glow blue, and with a blink, the room light turns on. The chubby guy is shocked. Before he can overthink, Jae-hyun slides a water bottle across the table, asking the chubby guy to give the water to the kids first. The children drink the water as if they've been in the desert for months. Jae-hyun watches them closely, a slight smile on his face. The younger child, Seo-hyun, almost chokes from how thirsty she is. Noticing this, Jae-hyun quickly offers her an orange. Seo-hyun hesitates but takes the orange. The sweet, citrusy aroma spreads, making her mouth water. She takes the orange to her mother, who carefully feeds it to her. The moment Seo-hyun eats, her eyes sparkle with delight. The orange is so sweet and juicy it melts in her mouth. Her joy is obvious. Seeing his sister enjoy the orange, Na-hyun also asks their mom for a piece. Hyungjun's wife obliges, and the children's laughter begins to fill the room. As Jae-hyun observes the joy, the system notification appears. The family's trust in Jae-hyun has increased a lot. Seo-hyun's trust level has reached 57, which qualifies her to become a vessel. Jae-hyun is shocked to see this notification. He still doesn't fully understand what a vessel is, but he's sure of one thing. He doesn't want to make a 3-year-old child his vessel. He thinks about how he can increase the chubby guy's trust to 50, since his current trust level is only 31. Jae-hyun is lost in thought when the chubby guy suddenly calls out to him, thanking him from the bottom of his heart. He asks how he could repay Jae-hyun's kindness. Jae-hyun calmly replies, suggesting they go outside to talk more. The scene changes, and we now see the chubby guy and Jae-hyun standing in the hallway. Jae-hyun asks the chubby guy if he received a system notification about citizenship. The chubby guy agrees. Jae-hyun asks more deeply if the chubby guy noticed anything strange. He explains that for a brief moment, everyone froze in place. Upon hearing this, Jae-hyun realizes something crucial. If he hadn't granted citizenship to the chubby guy and his family in time, they would have been teleported out of the building. This realization makes Jae-hyun's expressions serious and focused. With a clear and confident tone, Jae-hyun tells the chubby guy that if he helps him, Jae-hyun will provide food, water, shelter, and most importantly, protection. Their safety will be guaranteed. The chubby guy is shocked and asks how that would be possible. Jae-hyun doesn't explain. Instead, he states firmly that if the chubby guy wants food and safety, he needs to trust Jae-hyun without question. Jae-hyun promises he will never ask him to do anything that puts his life at risk. The chubby guy closes his eyes, trusting his gut. Despite everything, the chubby guy feels that Jae-hyun isn't a bad person. He asks what Jae-hyun wants in return, since nothing in this world is free. Jae-hyun calmly responds that he doesn't want anything material, just for the chubby guy to do one small thing for him. The chubby guy feels relieved, and even calls Jae-hyun brother. Jae-hyun smiles slightly, acknowledging the words. Changing the subject, Jae-hyun asks the price of the golf club the chubby guy had. He realizes it would be too expensive to put in his store. Changing the subject, Jae-hyun tells the chubby guy they can talk about the club later. later. Then, Jae-hyun asks when the apocalypse began. The chubby guy remembers it was on a weekend when a horde of goblins attacked. Jae-hyun puts the pieces together, remembering that day he was chilling in his room, like a true supreme recluse. He deduces that those who stayed home were spared from the first wave of destruction. Jae-hyun reflects on the goblins, and concludes that his citizenship will be crucial for survival. Finally, Jae-hyun gives the chubby guy a clear command: find survivors and bring them to this building. After that, the scene changes, and we see Jae-hyun lying comfortably on the sofa. His gaze is fixed on the system notification, watching as the chubby guy's trust is slowly but surely increasing. The chubby guy's trust level has reached 40, but Jae-hyun is anxious for him to reach 50 soon. Meanwhile, Jae-hyun is lost in deep thought, wondering when he'll be able to get out of the barrier to find his family. He wonders if granting citizenship to others will allow him to reunite with them. A very loud voice suddenly startles him. The sound pierces the silence, and Jae-hyun instantly recognizes it as the moan of a zombie and a human. Jae-hyun runs to the window and peeks outside. His eyes widen when he sees a group of 6 to 7 people fighting a goblin horde. He concludes that these people won't survive, as the group is too far from his building for him to help with his summoning ability. Jae-hyun starts to panic. However, to his surprise, a teenager throws a baseball with incredible force and instantly kills a goblin. Another teenager wearing a purple tracksuit launches 2 arrows at once and kills 2 more goblins. Finally, a third teenager with a baseball bat smashes a goblin's head with ease. The remaining goblins run for their lives. Suddenly, a loud noise startles the girl in the purple tracksuit. She finds a pack of ramen noodles on the ground and wonders where it came from. Looking up, she sees a black shadow on top of the building. It's Jae-hyun, trying to get her to come inside. As Jae-hyun watches the group, he suddenly hears a knock on his door. It's the chubby guy. Jae-hyun tells him to come in, but the system blocks him. A notification appears, stating that the chubby guy is not allowed to enter. This revelation surprises Jae-hyun. It confirms that no one can enter his room, even if he allows it. Jae-hyun wonders, will a vessel be able to enter? But he puts the thought aside for now. Jae-hyun leaves the room and instructs the chubby guy to get all the cheap items in his house that can serve as weapons. After checking, Jae-hyun immediately opens the Supreme Recluse's shop and summons 5 packs of ramen noodles and 5 water bottles. In seconds, the items materialize in front of the chubby guy, who is shocked. For the first time, he witnesses Jae-hyun's powers. Jae-hyun calmly gathers the items into a box and hands it to the chubby guy, telling him to deliver the box outside the building as his next mission. The chubby guy's expression turns worried. He reminds Jae-hyun of the many goblins lurking outside. Jae-hyun reassures him, stating that he already killed all the goblins that were nearby. The chubby guy hesitates but ultimately believes Jae-hyun's words. Jae-hyun adds that food is valuable in the world outside. He explains his grand plan, to give food to the hunters so they see him as their king and follow him without question. He smiles, knowing he is following Lilith's slavery technique. According to this method, those who receive food and water will inevitably become his slaves. The chubby guy trusts Jae-hyun completely and agrees. Jae-hyun then creates a new mission for the chubby guy in the system, which he accepts excitedly at the idea of earning XP. He goes down the stairs carrying the box. Although nervous, he trusts Jae-hyun and holds a golf club tightly. Finally, the chubby guy goes outside the building. Fear hits him instantly with a single thought: drop the box quickly and run. As the chubby guy bends down to place the box, he hears approaching footsteps. He freezes, his body trembling. From the corner of his eye, he sees a black shadow. Panic consumes him, and he imagines a bloodthirsty goblin. He tries to go back into the building, but he slips, and the box falls. Paralyzed with fear, he lies there, his face red and his breathing ragged. The footsteps get louder. The chubby guy begs for mercy, pleading with the imaginary goblins. Mustering the courage to open his eyes, the chubby guy is shocked to find there are no goblins. Instead, standing before him are a group of teenagers and students, all looking at him in surprise. After that, the scene changes, and the system notifies Jae-hyun that the people he saw before outside the building are now trying to enter. Jae-hyun understands instantly and activates his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes. Through his vision, he observes the teenagers in front of the building door. A girl in a purple tracksuit comments that this is the same apartment from where a strange guy threw ramen noodles. One of the guys, holding a baseball bat, comments that if someone is throwing ramen noodles around like that, they must have a lot of food. Jae-hyun deactivates his omniscient eyes and tries to add them as citizens. However, the system interrupts him with a notification, warning that he can propose citizenship, but the teenagers can reject it. The thought bothers him, as it might mess up his plans. He knows he needs to come up with a plan to ensure the teenagers accept. At the same time, Jae-hyun receives a call from the chubby guy through the camera system. Jae-hyun has a brilliant idea, instructs the chubby guy to wait, and updates his mission: serve food to the 6 guests. The chubby guy accepts the mission immediately. He approaches the guests standing outside the barrier and informs them that if they accept Jae-hyun's proposal, they will receive everything for free. Upon hearing the offer, they quickly agree. Jae-hyun opens the barrier, allowing them to enter. Once inside, the system notifies Jae-hyun that his citizen count has increased by 10%. The XP and money earned by Jae-hyun's citizens will also increase by 10%. This bonus is important. Jae-hyun observes the teenagers and analyzes their profiles. The highest level one is Ha Dong-gyeon, the same one who threw the baseball. His skill, baseball throw, rank D, allows him to throw objects with 10 times the force. Jae-hyun realizes the skill is incredibly dangerous and concludes that they are all meta-humans. He sets their XP distribution rate to 70%, which means the teenagers get 70% and Jae-hyun gets 30%. Satisfied, he realizes that if he continues to recruit citizens, they will become his automatic hunting team, allowing him to grow stronger and richer passively. This realization makes Jae-hyun feel like he's in an Age of Empires game. Jae-hyun knows his next step is to build the trust of these new citizens. worlds. Surprisingly, their trust is already increasing. Jaehyun is confused, but decides to watch more. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the chubby guy, who has brought all the teenagers to his apartment. Hyungjun's wife, seeing the group, is confused, but hears the chubby guy apologize and explain that they need food. The wife agrees to help. Jaehyun watches all this unfold through his supreme recluse's omniscient eyes, satisfied with the progress. After a while, Dongjin asks the chubby guy what kind of person Jaehyun is. The chubby guy explains that he doesn't know much, just that he's a strange but kind neighbor. Thanks to Jaehyun, they now have electricity, water, and food. Upon hearing this, Dongjin becomes worried. His gaze moves to the pack of ramen noodles Jaehyun gave them. Dongjin thinks Jaehyun must be a very dangerous and powerful metahuman. He silently decides to impress Jaehyun no matter what. Dongjin's trust in Jaehyun increases a lot, as he believes it's better not to anger someone with so much power. Meanwhile, the chubby guy asks the two girls in Dongjin's group if they want to take a bath while the food is being prepared. The moment the chubby guy mentions bath, the girls' eyes light up. The simple idea of a bath excites them. Dongjin is also surprised and realizes the shower must be working. The chubby guy confirms that there's even hot water, and that it's part of Jaehyun's abilities. At this moment, Jaehyun is like an electrician, a plumber, and a water supplier. One of the girls jokes that Jaehyun seems to be the god of all their professions. While the group discusses this, a bespectacled teenager approaches Dongjin and asks if he thinks he's more powerful than Jaehyun. Dongjin admits that, based on Jaehyun's abilities, this is impossible. Suddenly, Deoksu grabs Dongjin by the shoulder and suggests they should beat Jaehyun up together. His bizarre reason is that if they overpower Jaehyun, he will hand over all his food to them. Upon hearing this, Dongjin gets visibly annoyed, calls Deoksu a lunatic, and tells him not to do anything stupid. The group ultimately agrees that the best course of action is to impress Jaehyun. The scene changes, and this guy from their group is named Byung-ho, a timid boy. Dongjin approaches him and apologizes. If he hadn't invited him to the party hours before the apocalypse, Byung-ho could have saved his family. The boy replies that it wasn't Dongjin's fault, but Dongjin promises that after they eat, they will plan to rescue Byung-ho's grandma. However, Byung-ho remains distressed. He thinks it's too late, and that the goblins might have already eaten her. The atmosphere gets heavy as they sense someone approaching. Maybe it was a monster. And it really was a monster, but the monster's name is Jaehyun. He enters carrying 2 black bags. At that moment, Dongjin realizes that Jaehyun is the only one who can solve all their problems. Jaehyun enters with a deadly serious face and looks at the group. Without hesitation, Jaehyun confidently states that he will help them. Soon after, everyone was seated, but the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Hyungjun's wife apologizes to everyone for their house being so small. Dongjin tried to comfort her, saying it was their fault for showing up unannounced. At that moment, the chubby guy arrived with the hot food and began to serve everyone. The group of young people was surprised to see the dishes. It was the first time in a long time that they had seen food. And on top of that, clean, hot food. Hyungjun's wife became increasingly nervous, worried if the guests would like the meal. Rice, fried egg, kimchi, and warm water. The dish was mouth-watering. The table was full of various dishes. One of the girls took a small piece of egg to taste. As soon as she bit into it, she was shocked. Her mouth watered, and she exclaimed how delicious the food was. She loved it. Upon hearing this, Hyungjun's wife felt relieved and smiled. She said the credit for the food belonged to Jaehyun's ingredients, without which the food wouldn't have been so good, since she didn't even have food for herself. Everyone went silent, wondering, who the hell is this Jaehyun guy? At that instant, a system notification appeared for Jaehyun, informing him that the trust level of Hyungjun's wife had reached 50. This made Jaehyun happy, because her trust level increased faster than the chubby guy's. Everyone then began to enjoy the meal together. Their faces lit up as if they hadn't eaten such delicious food in a long time. They were really enjoying the food. One of the girls commented that the egg rolls were excellent, good enough to be served in a restaurant, and in this apocalypse, food like this was practically a dish from heaven. Another girl, curious, asked the chubby guy's wife if they were the same egg rolls served in Japanese restaurants. Seeing everyone so happy, Hyungjun's chubby guy's wife was equally joyful and encouraged them to enjoy the meal. At that moment, the younger daughter approached her with a sad face, saying she also wanted to eat those delicious egg rolls. The mother put her hand on her forehead and promised to make more rolls for her after the guests left. However, the little girl was still not satisfied and looked like she was about to cry. One of the girls then called the child and asked if she would like to share her egg roll. Upon hearing this, the little girl's face lit up with excitement and she ran to sit next to her. The girl, overflowing with emotion at Seo-hyun's cuteness and joy, used her chopsticks to feed her the egg roll. After tasting it, Seo-hyun was super happy. As everyone enjoyed the meal, Jaehyun noticed that the chubby guy and his wife were nearby, watching everyone with satisfied smiles. Seeing this, Jaehyun invited them to join the table and eat with everyone. The chubby guy and his wife were surprised at first, but they ended up sitting down and joining the group, enjoying the meal together. As everyone continued to eat, Jaehyun found himself feeling a bit sad. Watching everyone share a meal reminded him of how long it had been since he felt such warmth. He thought of his parents and hoped they were safe. With that, dinner ended. Afterwards, Seo-hyun went to her mother and said she was very sleepy. The mother picked her up and took her to bed. The older daughter also followed her, going to sleep. Now it was time for a serious talk. Jaehyun said they should continue the discussion. He turned to Dongjin and asked why he couldn't go to his grandma's house, even though it was so close. Dongjin looked nervous and explained that it was because of the goblins. Upon hearing about the goblins, Jaehyun's face became serious. Then Dongjin explained better, saying that the apartment's underground parking lot was a perfect hiding spot. So the goblins had made it their base. He even shared that he estimated the number of goblins there to be at least a few thousand. If they didn't defeat those goblins, they wouldn't be able to reach his grandma. Upon hearing this, Jaehyun became restless and thought to himself, the Supreme Recluse's ability is only valid up to the 30th floor. That's why the goblins could access the apartment building through the underground parking lot, which wasn't under my barrier. That was the reason I wasn't seeing any goblins. It was because all of them were in the basement. Dongjeon continued, explaining that all the apartment entrances were connected to the underground parking lot, and that's why they didn't dare to leave. The atmosphere became even more tense. Jaehyun, after much thought, then suggested that from what he remembered, there were secondary roads and small extra passages that served as shortcuts to the underground parking lot. Dongjeon agreed and said that their initial plan was to use the secondary roads to escape. However, a monster even more terrifying than the goblins had stopped them. Upon hearing about a creature more dangerous than the goblins, Jaehyun felt a pang of fear and surprise. Dongjeon, with a sad face, remembered the monster and explained to Jaehyun that it looked like a wolf or a bear. In fact, he described that it was as big as a bear and as fierce as a bloodthirsty wolf. Dongjeon had a flashback of the beast fighting a large group of goblins. He added that the only reason they managed to escape that time was because the beast was busy killing and slaughtering the goblins, even eating them. Upon hearing this, Jaehyun became deeply worried. Dongjeon added that they couldn't be sure what that thing was. It looked like a shadow beast because the area was too dark. Jaehyun commented that in the end, they couldn't avoid this forever. Dongjeon, still scared, said they had their limits. He explained that without those limits, they would have already fought the goblins. Curious, Jaehyun asked him about these limits. Rin, sitting nearby, replied that their weapons were almost destroyed. They were using bows and throwing baseballs. In the end, they would run out of things to shoot or throw. For Jaehyun, this was nothing. Jaehyun reassured them, saying he could solve this problem for them. Then, Jaehyun asked to see the bows and baseballs. They showed him the equipment. Jaehyun inspected them and immediately added the baseball to his system inventory. When he tried to add the bow, a message appeared in the system, saying he needed to pay 1,530,000 won to list the high-quality compound bow. Without hesitation, Jaehyun paid the amount and added the bow to his system. As an unlimited supply of arrows and baseballs was added to his store, Jaehyun then asked if all of them knew how to use bows. Everyone went silent. Before they could answer, Jaehyun, with a serious face, quickly bought 5 bow and arrow kits from his system. In seconds, the weapons appeared on the table. Jaehyun, in his casual tone, told everyone that even if they didn't know how to use them yet, they should take the chance to practice. He handed them the bows and encouraged them to start using them immediately. At that instant, Jaehyun received a system notification that some of their trust levels had increased a bit. Upon seeing this, he felt a mix of surprise and happiness. At the same time, a sense of hope began to fill the group. They began to believe that, with Jaehyun's help, they really might have a chance to save Byung-ho's grandma. Their trust in Jaehyun continued to grow steadily. Dongjeon was super happy, knowing that with these new weapons, his hunting efficiency would improve a lot. Another person commented that with this, they wouldn't have to risk their lives to get arrows back. Everyone seemed more hopeful and excited. Suddenly, Jaehyun got serious and addressed the group. Before moving forward, they needed to reduce the number of goblins. Dongjeon also adopted a serious tone and asked when they would start hunting. Jaehyun replied that they would start tomorrow. He guaranteed to them that they would definitely save Byung-ho's grandma the next day. Jaehyun tried to motivate the group. Upon hearing Jaehyun's promise, Byung-ho's face lit up with happiness. Dongjeon then asked how they would do it. With a confident smile, Jaehyun replied that they would use a bait strategy. Then Jaehyun began to explain his strategy. But after listening to it, their expressions revealed the tension. They wondered if Jaehyun's bait strategy would succeed or fail. Despite the concerns, they held on to the hope that it would work. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of Jaehyun, informing him that the chubby guy had completed the mission and earned a reward of 30,000 won. Jaehyun was momentarily startled by the notification, as the mission reward was deducted from his account. Jaehyun understood that as long as he had money, he could level up his citizens. From now on, unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't use the money for now. Before he could think more, another system window appeared, stating that Byung-ho's trust level had increased. His trust had now reached 50, and loyalty had been unlocked, fulfilling all the requirements for him to be registered as a vassal. Jaehyun was shocked by this surprise. At this moment, something strange began to happen to Byung-ho's body. Confused, Byung-ho didn't understand what was happening or why he was feeling that strange sensation. A new system window appeared, announcing that the vassal registration was successful. As a reward, Jaehyun had earned the ability Summon Vassal. The ability allows Jaehyun to summon his vassal into his home, but only 2 hours after the initial summoning. From now on, Byung-ho was officially Jaehyun's first vassal, earning the title of first servant. Jaehyun also acquired strength comparable to a gorilla's, and the same ability was also given to the chubby guy. Another system notification appeared, explaining that any EXP and gold earned by the chubby guy while hunting would be doubled. Furthermore, Jaehyun could use the Supreme Recluse's Omniscient Eyes ability to summon his vassal 5 meters from home. All this information was overwhelming. At this instant, Jaehyun noticed a plus button on the system window and clicked on it. A message appeared asking if he would like to spend 1,000 won to increase his vassal's level. The high price left Jaehyun shocked. He sat down, holding his head in frustration, thinking, is this some kind of slot machine game? Upon seeing him like this, the chubby guy's wife asked Jaehyun if anything was wrong, but Jaehyun shook his head and replied to her, it was nothing. From now on, Jaehyun decided they would call the chubby guy by his real name. Then Jaehyun asked Byung-ho how he was feeling. Byung-ho replied excitedly, saying he felt strength overflowing. He could even throw a punch and make a hole in the wall. He paused before asking Jaehyun if he had done something to his body. Jaehyun agreed and confirmed. Yes, Byung-ho continued, saying he felt like he had become 10 years younger and a mysterious aura was filling his body. Upon hearing this, Jaehyun was satisfied and smiled. Handing a bow to Byung-ho, he said he wanted him to join the mission. Although Byung-ho accepted the bow, it was clear that he was nervous. His hands were trembling as he held it. Jaehyun, on the other hand, hand, thought to himself, citizens gain 10% additional EXP, while vassals gain double the XP. This means that from now on, the chubby guy would become even more of a gorilla. His progress would be incredible. Out loud, he told Byung-ho that he should kill as many monsters as he could. Although Byung-ho was still terrified and on the verge of crying from fear, he agreed to the task. Jae-hyun was very happy with Byung-ho's decision. Smiling, he guaranteed to him that he would be counting on him. The mission finally begins as the group inspects the first floor of the apartment building. As they move with caution, Deok-soo comments to Dongjin that checking the first floor might be unnecessary since the windows are broken and the area is in bad shape. He suggests there might be no survivors. However, Dongjin disagrees and insists they need to check anyway. He reminds the group of Jae-hyun's instructions, saying they are there as a rescue team and need to save as many people as possible. He explains that their main mission, assigned by Jae-hyun, is to rescue any survivors in the building and escort them safely to the 30th floor. Stopping for a moment, Dongjin addresses the group, explaining the core of the mission. They need to lure a large number of goblins into the building and eliminate them. For this strategy to work, they need to find as many survivors as possible. He asks if everyone understands this clearly. The team agrees with confidence, boosting Dongjin's morale. Meanwhile, Deok-soo gets ready with his iron club, prepared to smash some monsters. Dongjin instructs his team to start with room 101 and tells everyone to stay alert, warning that goblins can appear at any moment. The group enters units 101 and 102, where an unbearable smell fills the air. Inside, there are bloodstains everywhere. It looks like someone was dragged across the floor before being killed. They find a horrible scene, bodies scattered everywhere, broken windows, and blood splattered on the walls. Some people were cut in half, and women are unclothed, probably victims of the goblins before being killed. This terrible sight is too much for the women in the group, and they throw up on the spot. The shocked group looks at Dongjin, who, although disheartened, encourages them to move forward. The team completes the search of the first floor but finds no survivors, which leaves them discouraged. Dongjin then takes them to the second floor. However, the second floor is no better. Just like the first floor, it's full of bodies, bloodstains, and destruction, further disturbing the team. Determined to continue, they decide to check the third floor. Upon arriving there, Dongjin knocks on a door, shouting to ask if anyone is alive. The team, full of hope, starts knocking on doors one by one but finds no survivors. Dongjin's morale begins to crumble with each passing second, but he decides to continue and check the fourth floor of the basement. The group heads to the fourth floor. Dongjin knocks on another door, asking again if anyone is inside. He is about to give up, desperately praying to find at least a single survivor. This time, to their surprise, someone answers. A man opens the door cautiously and asks if they are really a rescue team. Upon seeing a living person, Dongjin is super happy. He assures the man that they are there to rescue survivors. The man, exhausted but still suspicious, asks for water. The group hands him a bottle, and the man is shocked. He had thought they were intruders who had come to hurt him or steal his resources. Despite his doubts, Dongjin tries to reassure him, saying they are truly there to help. Dongjin explains that they are residents of the same apartment and are there to rescue survivors. He invites the man to join them. The man, still skeptical, opens the door slowly, revealing 2 more people inside his room. Apologizing for being paranoid before, he introduces himself as Hong Jung-soo and agrees to go with them. Dongjin gets excited, shaking Jung-soo's hands and introducing himself in return. He instructs 2 of his teammates to escort Jung-soo to the 30th floor and then come back to continue the mission. Upon hearing about the 30th floor, Jung-soo becomes restless and exclaims that they are not going to leave the apartment. At that moment, Jung-soo's youngest son interrupts, telling his father that someone would come to save them. The boy, surprisingly calm, speculates that they probably have a helicopter on the 30th floor, clearly inspired by watching too many zombie apocalypse movies. Rin clarifies that it's not exactly like that, but if they go with them, they will get hot food and a bath. Upon hearing the mention of a bath, Jung-soo's daughter gets excited. She encourages her father, saying they should go with the team and not worry so much. Despite his initial hesitation, Jung-soo ends up agreeing to join them. One by one, more survivors begin to follow the group, joining the rescue effort. As they continue, Jae-hyun receives a system notification. It says that his citizen count has now reached 40, and the EXP and gold earned by them have increased by 90%. The scene changes, and we see Jae-hyun deciding to temporarily shelter the children and the elderly in the chubby guy's house, while the others stay in the hallways. Dongjin approaches Jae-hyun and informs him that they have only managed to rescue 40 people so far. Jae-hyun asks Dongjin if there are only that many people in the whole building. Dongjin replies sadly, explaining that everyone who left their rooms was brutally murdered. He adds that they searched up to the 29th floor, but it seems many people didn't even leave home. Jae-hyun is happy with their efforts, although he reflects that the chubby guy's house is already almost full. Even so, he feels that this number should be enough for now. Activating his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes, Jae-hyun observes what everyone is doing. He first notices Byung-ho lifting a chair. He sees the chubby guy and others holding a huge water gallon, working together with the women. Finally, he sees Dongjin busy with his tasks. They were almost done with all the preparations Jae-hyun had instructed them to do. With a side smile, Jae-hyun tells Dongjin that they are ready to move on to the second phase of the goblin hunt. Dongjin gathers everyone and explains their mission: to lure the goblins hidden underground. He explains that they will start with basement level 1. The group will split into 2 teams to lure the goblins on B1 and eliminate them. Afterward, they will proceed to clear the goblins on B2. The bespectacled guy asks nervously, what if there are more goblins than they expect? Won't they get trapped and isolated on the first floor? And what if something happens while they are transporting the goblin bodies? Before Dongjin can answer, Rin, holding her bow, confidently declares that she will kill all the goblins, ensuring this doesn't happen. She reassures the bespectacled guy, reminding him that, as his Nuna, she will ensure everyone stays safe. Dongjeon reassures the group, adding that, unlike before, they now have plenty of arrows, so they will be fine. His confidence convinces the worried member to agree to the plan. Suddenly, a noise catches their attention. Everyone becomes alert, turning around immediately with serious faces to see 3 goblins standing in front of them. Without wasting a second, Rin immediately shoots her bow, hitting 2 of the goblins with her arrows. Dongjin quickly smashes the last goblin's head like a watermelon with his club. In an instant, all 3 goblins are dead. Afterward, the bespectacled guy jokingly asks Dongjin why he even brought a bow if he was only going to use a club. Hadn't he said he needed the bow? Deoksu replies that using a club just feels natural, although he notes that he feels a bit stronger than before. Little does he know, it was because of Jaehyun's improved club. Before Deoksu can say more, a woman calls their attention to the goblin bodies. Surprisingly, the goblins' bodies begin to disappear. Jaehyun was collecting the spoils. Byung-ho, upon seeing this, is surprised and wonders in shock if this is another one of Jaehyun's abilities. Ignoring the distraction, Dongjin orders the group to head toward B1. They follow him, while Byung-ho's trust in Jaehyun grows stronger and stronger. He begins to believe that Jaehyun can really save his grandma. Meanwhile, a system notification appears in front of Jaehyun, stating that the group's trust in him has increased. Drinking water, Jaehyun reads the notifications and thinks to himself that, although he hadn't planned it, it seems he has taken care of them like a guardian. Jaehyun feels like a big older brother. At that moment, another system notification appears, revealing that Byung-ho has reached a trust level of 50, fulfilling all the requirements to become a vassal. Jaehyun is surprised, as he didn't expect Byung-ho's trust in him to grow so quickly. Jaehyun reflects that Byung-ho must truly believe that Jaehyun can save his grandma. Recognizing the great development, Jaehyun realizes that the more vassals he has, the faster their growth will be. He checks Byung-ho's loyalty and is shocked to see that it is at 88, an even higher level than a mother and son. Calming down, Jaehyun decides that this is good news and confirms that Byung-ho becomes his vassal. Internally, he promises to do everything in his power to save Byung-ho's grandma. As soon as Jaehyun confirms, Byung-ho's body begins to shine during the goblin fight. Confused, Byung-ho has no idea what is happening. The intense light scares everyone, including the goblins, who begin to retreat. Dongjeon, nervous, tells everyone that he doesn't understand what's happening and orders them to fall back. The goblins, now blind, can't see. However, seeing this opportunity, the group begins to run. Dongjeon and Rin shoot arrows at the goblins as they run. Their arrows hit the goblins squarely in the forehead, killing them instantly. With a serious face, Rin uses her ability to shoot multiple arrows at once, killing many goblins. However, the number of goblins overwhelms them, as more keep appearing. Upon seeing the goblins approaching, Byung-ho panics and exclaims that it looks like even the goblins from B2 have come up to B1. This was unexpected. It seems the goblins can communicate telepathically. As the group runs toward the exit, they reach the gate. Dongjeon tries to close it, but some goblins manage to get their hands through. The group runs to help Dongjeon, but their efforts seem useless as more goblins from the other side push against the gate. There were too many goblins, and just as they were about to break through, all the people came to help push the door, but it was no use. A goblin, using only brute force, was holding the door and pushing it, and so, several goblins began to accumulate, making the situation worse. At this critical moment, the chubby guy used his gorilla strength ability to close the gate alone. Straining with all his might, the chubby guy yelled to himself that he had to stop them there. He had to do it, no matter what. Dongjeon quickly informed the chubby guy that everyone was safe now, and encouraged him to come back soon. The chubby guy tried to escape with the others, but the goblins managed to break through the gate, causing him to fall to the ground. The chubby guy desperately told Dongjin to leave without him, but Dongjin hesitated, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, Deiksu ran, hitting a goblin with his club and trying to pull the chubby guy to safety. However, a goblin grabbed the chubby guy's leg, holding him. At that moment, a goblin with lustful eyes began to stare at everyone, his expression revealing a hunger for what he considered a juicy, fat piece of meat. But just as the goblins were approaching, the chubby guy vanished into thin air. Shocked, Deiksu froze in confusion, unable to think what the hell just happened. Meanwhile, the goblins began to advance toward him. A goblin jumped to attack him, but Deiksu once again smashed it with his club, sending it flying. Deoksu then began to run toward his teammates, skillfully dodging the goblin's attacks. His teammates quickly covered him by shooting arrows at the goblins, creating a large enough gap for Deoksu to escape safely. The group continued to retreat, desperately trying to avoid being overwhelmed by the relentless goblin horde. In the dark night, under the moonlight, the entire building was silent. But in the basement, a beast, a terrifying one, was devouring goblins one by one, tearing their bodies, crushing and chewing the goblins like candy. It eliminated every goblin with ease, and then, in anger, turned its gaze toward the building. Its only thought was to kill everyone inside, driven by an insatiable hunger for more food to eat and evolve. On the other hand, the chubby guy suddenly fell to the ground with a thud. The chubby guy was sure he wouldn't survive today. He was convinced the goblins would make him dinner, but he was confused. He didn't understand where he was. Meanwhile, Jaehyun was standing in front of the chubby guy, and, with a friendly tone, asked how he was feeling. The chubby guy was shocked and worried, but Jaehyun, with a friendly smile, helped him up. Jaehyun was happy he had made the chubby guy his vassal, because it allowed him to summon him there. The chubby guy's leg, however, was very bruised. It was bleeding from a goblin scratch. The chubby guy couldn't understand anything. Before he could process, Jaehyun noticed the deep cut on the chubby guy's leg. The chubby guy tried to ignore it, saying it was nothing and that it would heal on its own. But Jaehyun saw that the chubby guy couldn't even move his leg. This was a serious situation. Jaehyun told the chubby guy to stay there and ran to his room. Upon arriving, Jaehyun grabbed his first aid kit. He remembered how his mother had taught him how to do first aid in emergencies. Jaehyun had an infinite number of antiseptic pills and medical supplies. He practically had all kinds of medical resources resources. However, his Supreme Recluse inventory only had 40 slots, so he couldn't carry everything. He needed to be very careful. After thinking for a moment, Jaehyun had an idea. He put all the medicines in the first aid kit and put the kit in the inventory slot. It was a brilliant idea. Jaehyun began to wonder if he stored an entire room full of medicine or a box full of medical supplies, would he be able to duplicate them? This thought seemed to change everything for him. After preparing, Jaehyun went back to the chubby guy. He took out the first aid kit and asked the chubby guy to show his leg. The chubby guy reluctantly revealed it, and blood was gushing from the wound. While cleaning the blood, Jaehyun warned the chubby guy that the situation was very serious. He explained that if the wound got infected, the chubby guy could even lose his leg. While Jaehyun treated the wound, the chubby guy winced in pain. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, stating that the chubby guy's trust in Jaehyun had increased drastically. Finally, Jaehyun finished treating the wound. He instructed the chubby guy to go to his room and rest. The chubby guy, still in pain but grateful, obeyed. Afterward, Jaehyun closed his eyes and activated his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes. He saw that in the basement, Rin was tirelessly killing goblins with her bow. She moved with precision, eliminating goblin after goblin. The hunt had just begun. Deoksu is smashing all the goblins with his club like crazy. They are taking turns killing goblins and running upstairs. A little earlier, when the chubby guy suddenly vanished in front of Deoksu's eyes, he had run up the stairs like his ass was on fire. From behind, the group was shooting arrows at the goblins like their lives depended on it. Suddenly, two goblins appear in front of Deoksu, looking ready to tear him to pieces. Out of nowhere, Byung-ho went nuts. Byung-ho swings the club with the energy of someone with a fucking sugar rush, and in a single blow, he smashes the heads of the two goblins. He didn't fucking stop. He jumps forward, landing in front of Deoksu, and begins to obliterate the goblins one by one. It's as if the power of 10 fucking elephants is running through his veins. Everyone is standing there like, just happened. Was Byung-ho always this strong? Well, thanks to becoming Jaehyun's vassal, the guy is now basically on a power trip. Jaehyun watches the chaos unfold and feels a wave of relief. Everyone seems safe for now. Taking a second, he checks Byung-ho's status. Byung-ho is now level 30. His trust is 55 and loyalty is 88. His awakened skill, teleportation. That's right, a game-changing rank A skill. The guy can teleport to anywhere his eyes can see, and not just himself. He can take others along too. Jaehyun smiles like a proud father, thinking, for sure, making Byung-ho a vassal was the best decision. Meanwhile, Byung-ho is still on his high, destroying goblins left and right. Deoksu, taking in the madness, turns to Jae-on, the bespectacled guy, who looks like he's about to faint. He asks if Jae-on can continue. Jae-on agrees, determined. The group prepares for the next attack. Deoksu asks Rin if the water tank is ready. Rin confirms, and at that instant, Byung-ho comes up the stairs, dragging an army of goblins behind him. Byung-ho jumps up the stairs, and as soon as he gets to the top, the group turns the huge water tank on top of the goblins. The goblins get soaked, but it's not enough to take them down. That's when Dongjeon grabs an extension cord and plugs it into the outlet. Wires hidden along the staircase light up, and electricity crackles through the water. The lower level goblins, those level 6S and 7S bullshit ones, fry like chicken in an air fryer. But the level 10 goblins? Those bastards are still standing. The system notifies Jaehyun that he earned a huge amount of EXP, and a fat wad of 34,464 It all goes straight to his Supreme wallet. Jaehyun smiles because he just leveled up, and his skills got even more broken. But then, shit gets weird. Jaehyun feels a strange pain in his body. His heart starts pounding like he just ran a marathon. His whole body feels like it's on fire. Suddenly, a purple shield begins to form around him. The shield expands, spreading through the building and reaching the basement. Every high-level goblin caught in it starts to freeze up. The system notifies Jaehyun that a hostile presence was detected inside his shield. Jaehyun smiles, because now it's time to show these little shits who's boss. With a simple command, the goblins trapped inside the shield pop like fucking balloons. Blood splatters everywhere, painting the walls like horror show. Hundreds of goblins die instantly. On another floor, a group of goblins is gathered, preparing to march into the building with no idea of their dark future. Suddenly, a fat goblin feels something behind him. When he turns around, he sees a fucking huge beast standing there. Before the goblin can even blink, the beast bites into his fat body, instantly killing him and brutally devouring the juicy flesh like a fucking snack. Watching this bloody massacre, the other goblins are terrified, but before they can move, the beast charges at them, cutting through the crowd like a fucking lawnmower, tearing goblins to pieces with its claws. Some stupid goblins try to approach from behind and attack. They manage to land a few weak blows, but the beast doesn't give a damn, throwing them aside like trash. Some goblins, probably full of stupidity, climb onto the beast, biting and tearing its flesh. The beast lets out a roar of pure rage as they chew on its face and tear its body. The pain is obvious, but the beast thinks, it. With a earth-shaking roar, the beast grabs every goblin hanging on it and tears them to pieces. Pieces of goblins fly everywhere, blood splattering like a horror show. The beast stomps on the remaining bodies, crushing them into a disgusting bloody paste. The goblins are completely exterminated. But then, out of nowhere, a system notification appears, stating that the beast has been granted fucking citizenship. Suddenly, the beast begins to shrink. Its huge, bloody form is drained of energy, and holy starts to transform. In a few moments, voila, the beast is gone, and in its place is a stunning woman. Naked as the day she was born, but covered in blood, she faints, unconscious on the floor. Jaehyun, watching all this through his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eye, is completely shocked. He mutters, Is that? A system window appears, dropping more bombs. The girl's name is Oh Yeon-ju, and her skill is called Dress Up Bear. Another notification explains that Dress Up Bear allows the user to transform into a freaking monster, maximizing all physical and regeneration abilities. Jaehyun is impressed. This chick is level 33 with a rank A skill. Then, more notifications come. Dongjun and Hye-rin's trust reaches 50, unlocking loyalty. And Deoksu, his loyalty surpasses 30, fulfilling the requirements to become a vassal. Jaehyun smiles to the side and tells the system to register Deoksu. Boom! Another vassal is added to the team. Deoksu gains the skill Iron Knight, and a system notification explains that Iron Knight allows the user to summon a halberd and a full iron armor. Jaehyun understood something crucial. The higher the vassal's levels, the stronger their awakened abilities become. He starts to think about his vassals one by one. The chubby guy with the strength of a gorilla has a rank C skill and is level 20. Deoksu, who has the Iron Knight skill, a rank B skill, is level 25. Byungho, with the rank A teleportation skill, is at level 30. Jaehyun thinks more deeply. From the moment they were registered as vassals, their levels seem to be decided based on the rank of their awakened abilities. However, a question bothers him. Are the skill ranks chosen randomly? He ponders. If Byungho earned a rank A skill corresponding to his loyalty value, then why did the chubby guy with a higher loyalty value only earn a rank C skill? After all, Deoksu obtained a rank B skill with a loyalty value of 31. Confused, he thinks more. It would be useful to understand the factors that determine higher rank abilities. This information is crucial, especially since he can only register 10 vassals. It would be advantageous to register someone with the potential to earn a higher rank ability. Finally, Jaehyun comments to himself. Not knowing what could happen if he registers a metahuman as a vassal is a problem. His thoughts are interrupted by a system notification. The metahuman can now move freely between stairs, elevators, and hallways. After considering this, Jaehyun goes toward the elevator and uses his Supreme Recluse's Omniscient Eyes ability to observe the girl. She is still lying unconscious on the floor. Jaehyun calls the chubby guy, who arrives quickly as the elevator doors open. Jaehyun instructs him, explaining that on basement level 2, he will find a girl, and he wants the chubby guy to bring her up here. Meanwhile, his teammates are tying up the defeated goblins with ropes, trying to understand the chaos. It seemed that all the goblins were scared and running from something. Dongjian is particularly shocked, realizing that he underestimated the pure power of the ability they had just witnessed. He is shocked, seeing how Jaehyun, with a simple snap of his fingers, popped all the goblins like it was nothing. Dongjian remembers past moments, like when the chubby guy talked about Jaehyun's divine abilities, and even mentioned things like hot water. Putting the pieces together, he realizes that this must also be part of Jaehyun's abilities. He remembers that the chubby guy's wife once mentioned that the ingredients for their food were all provided by Jaehyun. In deep thought, Dongjian concludes, all of this is connected to Jaehyun's abilities. Dongjian wonders why Jaehyun is so strong that he might not even need anyone, but still chooses to help everyone in this world. Dongjian's trust in Jaehyun increases even more. Thinking about Byungho, Dongjin notes, Byungho was always an introvert, but after meeting Jaehyun, he changed, acting like a psycho killer for a moment. While gathering the wires, the only thought in Dongjin's mind was, Jaehyun is such a frighteningly strong being, and his abilities must be feared. On the other hand, the chubby guy is seen running to basement level 2 to rescue the woman. While Dongjian continues his thoughts, he considers how lucky they all are that Jaehyun chose them. Meanwhile, Jaehyun, with his Supreme Recluse's Omniscient Eye, is observing everything, staying vigilant and calculating his next move. After that, the scene changes to a flashback. A very cute child is playing with his toy car. He turns around, full of joy, and calls his mom, asking if she can play with him too. Then, the same woman who had transformed from a beast into a human before appears. She is playing with her son in a loving and caring way, while the child waves his hand happily, but this happiness is short-lived. The color drains from her face when she sees something terrifying. She is horrified and screams loudly. Her son, still smiling and calling her to play, doesn't notice the danger behind him. 3 bloodthirsty goblins drooling and ready to devour him alive. The woman is overcome by a powerful desire to protect her son. She runs as fast as she can, but it's too late. The goblins, with their insatiable hunger, don't let such delicious meat escape. In an instant, they tear the child to pieces and devour him in front of her eyes. The woman witnesses her son's brutal death, and it destroys her from the inside out. This horrible nightmare wakes her up with a start. The woman, Yeon-ju, wakes up, terrified and drenched in sweat. She screams loudly, sitting on the bed, her chest heaving. Nearby is Jaehyun, who greets her calmly. Jaehyun looks at her for a moment and asks how she's feeling. Yeon-ju, still disoriented, holds her head, trying to understand where she is. Meanwhile, Jaehyun extends his hand and introduces himself, saying he is happy to meet her. However, Yeon-ju remains suspicious of Jaehyun and asks a single question. Was he the one who did that job before? Jaehyun looks confused, not knowing what Yeon-ju means. But she insists, asking if he was the one who made the goblins' heads fly off like balloons. It turns out that while Yeon-ju was unconscious, Jaehyun had used his domain expansion to kill the goblins, making their heads pop like balloons. While Jaehyun tries to offer his hand again, Yeon-ju pulls away, her voice trembling. She confirms that it was indeed Jaehyun who killed the goblins. This discovery makes her even more suspicious and wary. Her fear of Jaehyun Jaehyun grows, as his immense power is undeniably terrifying. He can annihilate an entire group of goblins in an instant, like crushing ants under his foot. Yeonju's thoughts turn dark. She begins to wonder, if she were as strong as Jaehyun, maybe she could have saved her son. Overwhelmed by sadness, she begins to tremble and cry again. She curses her own power, lamenting that it awakened too late. If it had awakened earlier, maybe her son would still be alive. Between the tears, Yeonju calls out to Jaehyun. Her voice trembles and she looks completely devastated. Jaehyun, caught by surprise, watches her intently. Yeonju, with a desperate and sad tone, asks Jaehyun if he can save her son. Deep down, she knows her son is gone, but she begs Jaehyun to avenge him, killing all the fucking goblins in the world. And with that, another goblin slayer is born. Yeonju sits on the bed and cries, her body trembling. Jaehyun stands nearby, silently observing her overwhelming sadness. The room is filled with the sound of her uncontrollable crying. Jaehyun ponders the tragedy she suffered. As a recluse, he isn't good at interacting with others. He genuinely doesn't know how to comfort this grieving mother. As Yeonju was crying, the system suddenly notified Jaehyun that Yeonju's trust in him had increased a lot. Yeonju continued to cry, telling Jaehyun how much she missed her son. Seeing her pain, Jaehyun couldn't figure out how to help. He understood that the goblins had eaten her child. Jaehyun wondered if there was anything he could do. Then he had an idea. What if he gave Yeonju a mission with a reward that would revive her son? Although he knew it was impossible, he decided to try. Jaehyun created a mission for Yeonju. He wrote in the mission that if Yeonju killed 1,000 goblins, the reward would be that her son would be revived. Instead of doing nothing, Jaehyun felt he had to try. Jaehyun prayed that the mission would work. He knew there was no way to bring the dead back, but in this fucked up world, anything seemed possible. However, as soon as Jaehyun applied the mission to Yeonju, the system shocked him. It notified Jaehyun that he didn't have the funds to provide the resurrection reward. The discovery hit him hard. If Jaehyun could earn enough funds, he would be able to revive anyone. His entire body began to tremble. This changed everything. At that moment, Jaehyun realized the potential of his role. He was the system. He could become the god of this world. Still, Jaehyun knew he needed more money to make this a reality. The problem was that the system didn't specify how much money was needed. Despite this uncertainty, Jaehyun refused to give up. Yeonju was still crying, and Jaehyun called out to her. He told her there might be a way to revive her son. Upon hearing this, Yeonju was shocked. She felt as if someone had shot her. She felt surprise and sadness all at once, but she also thought Jaehyun might be joking. She warned him, "If this is a cruel joke, stop it. If not, I will never forgive you." Jaehyun reassured her, saying that there was indeed a way, but it would be very difficult. Upon hearing this, Yeonju became desperate. She told Jaehyun she was willing to do anything for him, even warm his bed or become his slave. Jaehyun interrupted her and said there was no need for that. She just had to do one thing, which he would explain later. After that, the scene changes, and Jaehyun introduces Yeonju to Dongjeon. Dongjeon greets her warmly with a firm handshake. Yeonju introduces herself too, but she remains a bit serious. She asks Dongjeon a single question. Was he the one who was killing goblins with a baseball bat? And was Rin the same girl who used a bow to kill goblins? Upon hearing such an accurate description, Dongjeon and Rin are shocked. They don't understand who this woman is or how she knows about them. Rin asks Yeonju if they have met before. Yeonju, trying to lighten the mood, makes her hand look like a bear's paw and acts cute, saying they must have met her before. She playfully asks if they really don't recognize her. Dongjeon, Rin, and Deoksu are all confused, wondering what the woman is talking about. Yeonju smiles confidently and decides to activate her beast transformation. Little by little, fur begins to appear on her body. A deep and threatening aura emerges, and soon her entire body is covered in thick fur. As soon as Yeonju completes the transformation, Rin recognizes her and is about to scream. Yeonju, now almost 3 meters tall, stands up like a terrifying deadly beast, ready to attack anyone in her path. Rin and the others finally realize that she is the same beast that blocked them in the basement, killing goblins like crazy. Upon seeing their reaction, Yeonju laughs. This moment amuses her a bit, and she puts her hand to her face, saying that, to be precise, she is actually a bear, not a beast. She assures them that she is not an enemy. In fact, she explains that she has helped them by killing goblins in the basement many times, but they never noticed. Instead, they thought she was a beast that wanted to kill them too. Finally, Deoksu and Dongjin realize that Yeonju is telling the truth. The beast never attacked them. She was killing the goblins that were about to end their lives. Dongjin approaches Yeonju with great joy and says that the encounter in the basement was not a coincidence. Yeonju agrees and declares that her national enemy is the goblins. She swears to exterminate all the goblins in this world. She adds that the enemies of goblins are her friends, thus marking the birth of another goblin slayer. While the conversation continues, Jaehyun arrives from behind. He expresses his happiness that everyone has been introduced. However, his expression turns serious as he announces something important. He tells them there is no more time. By tomorrow morning, they need to start the plan to save Byung-ho's grandma. Now that the number of goblins has drastically decreased, this is the perfect time to continue. Jaehyun then informs the group that he won't be able to join the battle due to his fatal injury. Instead, Mrs. Yeonju will accompany Deoksu's and Dongjeon's group to kill the goblins. Upon hearing the term goblin hunter, Yeonju is very happy. Jaehyun gives his final command to everyone, instructing them to rest. He reminds them that they will start the mission as soon as they wake up the next morning. As the group disperses to their rooms, Jaehyun calls Deoksu and Byung-ho aside. The scene changes, and Jaehyun takes them to a small room. He asks them, "Do you know why I brought you here?" The two look very confused. Jaehyun, with a serious face, asks if they know why he called them there. Deoksu has no idea, but Byung-ho is a little suspicious. He takes a chance and asks Jaehyun if he called them to talk about abilities. Jaehyun gives an evil smile and says that Byung-ho is right. Both Jaehyun and Byung-ho have unlocked their awakened abilities. The two are shocked to hear hear this. Jaehyun tells Byung-ho that his awakened ability is called teleportation. Upon hearing the word teleportation, Byung-ho gives a big smile. Jaehyun informs Deoksu that his awakened ability is called Iron Knight. Deoksu is very confused. What does Iron Knight mean? Will he be able to summon a knight? Jaehyun, with a serious face, decides to train the two first because both need to master their abilities to complete the tasks. That's why Jaehyun unlocks his system notification and creates a new mission for the two. The mission is that both need to discover their awakened abilities. They need to unlock their awakened abilities for the first time. The time limit is 1 hour. The reward is an increase in strength, and the punishment is that both have to sleep outside. Jaehyun is about to give the mission to both. At the same time, Deoksu, super excited, asks Jaehyun if Deoksu has unlocked his awakened ability. Will he be able to use his abilities like Dongjeon? Jaehyun agrees. Upon hearing this, Deoksu gets more excited and starts jumping like a child and shouts that he can't wait to use the Iron Knight ability. Iron Knight sounds very cool. After that, Jaehyun explains to Deoksu that he can summon the Iron Armor and a Halberd of Hell using his Iron Knight ability. While Deoksu is listening to Jaehyun and is about to ask a question, at the same time, in front of Deoksu's eyes, Byung-ho disappears with a splash. Upon seeing this, Deoksu is very surprised and stands still. For a while, both Jaehyun and Deoksu stand in total silence. After a moment, Byung-ho teleports from his spot and reappears a little further away. Upon seeing this, Byung-ho is very surprised and happy. Byung-ho can't believe that he thought he could teleport a little further, and as soon as he thought it, he teleported. Byung-ho squeezes his hands and says that with this ability, he can definitely save his grandma. On the other hand, Deoksu notifies Jaehyun that Byung-ho's trust in Jaehyun has increased drastically. The next moment, Byung-ho, bowing his head from the bottom of his heart, thanks Jaehyun and tells him that from today on, he will begin to believe in Jaehyun. Everything Jaehyun says, he will do for Jaehyun. For Jaehyun, Byung-ho will be able to save his grandma. But Jaehyun tells Byung-ho that he shouldn't be so happy so soon, because it would be very difficult for him to get to his grandma's house at the moment. Upon hearing this, Byung-ho is a little disappointed. He now has the teleportation ability, so he can teleport directly to his grandma's house. But Jaehyun says there's no guarantee that Byung-ho will be able to control his ability well. At the moment, Byung-ho doesn't even know how far he can teleport, or for how long he can teleport at a time. First, Byung-ho will have to master his teleportation ability, because it shouldn't happen that, while teleporting, Byung-ho gets stuck midway to his grandma's house. Or he falls unconscious, and the goblins kill Byung-ho. Upon hearing this, Byung-ho is a little disappointed, but he understands that everything Jaehyun is saying seems logical, so Byung-ho will have to wait a little longer to save his grandma. But while Jaehyun and Byung-ho are talking, a very strong flash shines from behind. Upon seeing this, both Byung-ho and Jaehyun are scared. And the next moment, as soon as Jaehyun and Byung-ho turn around, we are shown a huge statue holding a very large iron axe in its hand, which looked very dangerous. This is none other than our Deoksu. Deoksu has invoked his Iron Knight, and Deoksu's body has a very thick, powerful, and enchanted iron armor, and he is holding a very large iron axe. Upon seeing such a thick and cool armor and weapon, Deoksu's trust in Jaehyun increases. The system notifies Jaehyun that Deoksu's trust and loyalty have increased drastically. Deoksu is dancing happily. On the other hand, Jaehyun tells Byung-ho to teleport to the building next door. This will be Byung-ho's first mission. If he can easily teleport to the building next door, it means he is using his ability well. Byung-ho looks at the building next door, stands still for a while, and is determined to teleport there. On the other hand, Jaehyun also creates a new mission for Byung-ho, in which it is written that he will have to teleport to the building next door in 3 minutes. The reward will be an increase in teleportation proficiency. Byung-ho concentrates, and from behind, Deoksu increases his confidence, encouraging him. Byung-ho, with a serious face, thinks about teleporting to the building next door, and in a moment, he disappears from his spot. The next moment, he successfully teleports to the building next door. Byung-ho waves his hand while looking at Jaehyun from the window of the building next door, and Jaehyun is also happy to see that Byung-ho has already used teleportation over a long distance. Byung-ho also happily waves his hand from that building. At the same time, suddenly there is darkness in front of Byung-ho's eyes, and he suddenly falls unconscious, collapsing in the building. Upon seeing this, Deoksu and Jaehyun are scared. What happened to Byung-ho suddenly? Jaehyun doesn't wait for a second. He summons Byung-ho with the summoning ability, and then puts him to sleep. Jaehyun quickly checks Byung-ho's system notification, and finds that his health is in good condition. Byung-ho is just sleeping. So Jaehyun thinks that either his mana ran out, or again, his limit is only to teleport over a short distance. If Byung-ho teleports more than that, all his energy will run out, and he will fall unconscious. Jaehyun explains all this to Deoksu, that Byung-ho is completely fine. After a little rest, Byung-ho will regain consciousness. After that, Jaehyun suddenly turns to Deoksu and asks if he likes to exercise. Deoksu doesn't understand this question. Why is Jaehyun suddenly asking about exercise? And the next moment, Jaehyun gives Deoksu the One Punch Man schedule task. Jaehyun creates a new mission for Deoksu, in which he has to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and run 10 meters in 10 minutes. The reward is an increase in strength, and the punishment is sleeping outdoors. And Deoksu has to do all this with his armor on. Deoksu doesn't take a second. He quickly starts the push-ups, squats, and the run. With the armor on, Deoksu quickly completes all the push-ups and squats, but he starts to pant loudly. Jaehyun looks at him from behind and thinks that Deoksu completed this task with such ease. Maybe this is because Deoksu is already an athlete who plays sports. Because of this, Deoksu's endurance is already very good. While Jaehyun is thinking all this, the system notifies Jaehyun that the evaluation process has started. Jaehyun doesn't understand. Is this a new evaluation notification? Because he had never seen an evaluation notification before. While Jaehyun is thinking all this, Deoksu asks Jaehyun if he wants to do any other task or any other quick quick mission. Jaehyun says, "No, that's all for today. Deoksu can go." After that, Deoksu thanks Jaehyun and says he will leave. At the same time, the system notifies Jaehyun that the evaluation has been completed. Since Deoksu's strength increased due to the completion of the task, Jaehyun's strength will also increase a little. Upon seeing this notification, Jaehyun is very shocked because he feels that his body is stronger than before. This information was revolutionary for Jaehyun. This means that all of Jaehyun's vassals will become stronger, and Jaehyun will also become stronger. This changed everything. After that, the scene changes. We see that it's night. Byung-ho and his entire group are running. Many goblins are also running after them. Deoksu quickly invokes his Iron Knight. And like a true knight, he stands in front of all the goblins, and one by one begins to kill and cut all the goblins. But Deoksu was alone. How could he stop all the goblins alone? Some goblins pass to the right and left of Deoksu and run towards Byung-ho, but from behind, Byung-ho was also ready with his bow and arrow. With the help of the arrow, Byung-ho kills all the remaining goblins, and he is ready to kill the remaining goblins. Upon seeing Byung-ho and Deoksu, all the remaining goblins are scared and run back. But a huge shadow from behind stops all the goblins. Upon seeing that huge shadow, all the goblins are so scared that tears start to come out of their eyes, because that huge shadow is none other than our huge bear mummy. Before the goblins could say anything, the bear mummy cuts all the goblins into 2 pieces, and Byung-ho and his group are also killing all the goblins one by one. Byung-ho's group tells him that they are killing all the goblins and stopping them. Byung-ho should quickly go to his grandma and save her. Byung-ho leaves his group to kill the goblins and goes to save his grandma. On the other hand, Jaehyun is just sitting at home and eating ramen noodles. While eating ramen noodles, Jaehyun is notified by the system that his citizens have completed the mission. Because of this, he has received 132,966 won. Jaehyun is surprised because it was the first time his citizens earned money by completing the mission. Jaehyun thinks that when Deoksu completed the mission, Jaehyun's strength increased. And when other citizens completed the mission, Jaehyun earned money. Jaehyun thinks that when his citizens complete the mission, Jaehyun's reward will be random. Slowly, many systems notify Jaehyun that other citizens have also completed the mission. Byung-ho has also completed his mission, and the system is evaluating all the rewards. Finally, after a while, when the system evaluates all the rewards, the system notifies Jaehyun that he hit the jackpot. And as soon as Jaehyun sees the jackpot reward, his ramen noodles get stuck in his throat. Jaehyun is shocked with his mouth open. Well, this reward was a new feature, skill points. Jaehyun raised an eyebrow, genuinely shocked. Like, seriously? Now he's earning skill points? At this rate, nothing would surprise him anymore, even if the system decided tomorrow that it was pregnant. Then, the scene changes, and we see Byung-ho finally teleporting near his house. With a deadly serious and slightly nervous face, he was intensely staring at his house, slowly walking towards the door, his mind racing with 100 thoughts. He was desperately praying that his grandma was okay. The next moment, gathering every ounce of courage he had, he ran, shouting his grandma's name directly towards her room. But even in this desperate situation, he didn't forget to take off his shoes. Man, I love this guy so much. Back to the story. As soon as he reached the room, his eyes widened dramatically. His grandma was alive, but she was lying unconscious on the floor, looking painfully weak. Panic surged in Byung-ho as he hurried towards her. Luckily, upon hearing his frantic voice, his grandma slowly opened her eyes, and with a weak, trembling voice, she touched his hand, recognizing Byung-ho instantly. It was a moment that touched Byung-ho's heart, stomach, and liver. Tears began to stream from his eyes like rain, and on that day he cried as much as he could, sobbing like a newborn baby. She was his only family, and hugging her tight, he continued to cry, filled with overwhelming happiness. He cried for a while, thanking Jaehyun mentally again and again, putting Jaehyun in the position of a god. For Byung-ho, Jaehyun had now officially become the supreme god of this apocalypse. On the other hand, the scene changes again, and we see Jaehyun staring at his system notification. The system notified him happily that Byung-ho's trust had reached 100%. Now Byung-ho would even kill or literally do anything Jaehyun asked. Because of this, another vassal slot for regeneration was unlocked. Now Jaehyun had a total of 11 vassal slots, plus a new system ability. He could now level up the vassals directly like game characters. This absolutely changed everything. Jaehyun was completely shocked. Leveling up can be done like this? Slowly, he tried to level up Byung-ho, but the moment he did, the system coldly notified him that he didn't have enough money. He needed 100,000 won, which was about $70,000. Jaehyun was completely stunned to see this absurd, ridiculous, and utterly up amount. He began to slam his hand furiously, yelling at the system that it was insane. Honestly, this system was more greedy than a fame-hungry influencer. At that instant, Jaehyun heard a strange noise. His senses picked up the sound of the elevator. Immediately activating his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes, he detected 2 people. A chubby-bodied person and a cute girl standing sinisterly beside the chubby guy's door. And I must say, both looked scary and extremely suspicious. Before you get confused, in the novel, when Jaehyun's domain expanded, it allowed all the people under his domain to move freely. Now back to the story. When the chubby guy's wife, Haiwan, upon hearing the doorbell, opened the door, she was surprised. The suspicious-looking woman greeted her warmly, introducing herself as Dabin and her brother as Minho. They explained that they lived in apartment number 17001. Clearly confused and full of suspicion, Haiwan cautiously asked what brought them there. With a trembling voice, Dabin shamelessly confessed that they had come to ask for help. She nervously explained that she just wanted to take a bath. After all the tension, Haiwan was dumbfounded, thinking, what A bath? Still a bit confused, Hyewon invited them in, assuring her that it was an easy task. As soon as the two siblings entered, Minho, still with a serious expression, asked where he should place the large box he was carrying. Hyewon was intrigued, until Dabin explained that the box was full of canned food and supplies. She couldn't be selfish enough to ask for something in these difficult times without offering anything in return, right? While Minho was placing the box on the floor, Hyewon tried to say that they didn't need to go to all this trouble, but Dabin insisted that she keep the box, saying it would be strange to go to a stranger's house and ask for a free bath. At this exact moment, Dabin noticed all the weapons scattered around. Surprised, she asked if all those weapons belonged to Hyewon. Was Hyewon a hunter? This scared Hyewon, and she awkwardly explained that it was complicated. The weapons belonged to someone else, someone like their boss. While Hyewon was busy explaining, Jaehyun finished spying on them. After careful observation, he concluded that, at least for now, these siblings didn't seem bad. Jaehyun decided he would speak to them in person, and then decide what to do. Then, suddenly, the system notified Jaehyun that a red tiger was being hunted. Jaehyun received a huge amount of experience points, plus 4,000,001, totaling 39,000,000. His abilities increased drastically, and he even gained a new ability. All these notifications were overwhelming for him. Jaehyun realized he had made a mistake. He had become too absorbed in observing the siblings. Meanwhile, outside was total chaos. Everyone was completely exhausted and injured, having just managed to kill a huge and monstrous tiger. Yeonju, covered in blood, was lying unconscious on the ground. It was a total disaster. At that instant, the range of Jaehyun's domain expansion increased again, causing an intense wave of pain directly in his heart. In his heart. Given the terrible situation, he urgently granted citizenship to everyone, deciding he would judge later if they were good or bad. The system then notified Jaehyun again. When the number of citizens reached a certain limit, all citizens unlocked the power of trust. But Jaehyun had no time to celebrate this achievement. He was worried about the injuries. He certainly hadn't foreseen facing a gigantic tiger in the jungle. Somewhere else, Byungho was teleporting at maximum speed with his grandma on his back, heading towards the apartment, with the others desperately running behind him. Deoksu was carrying the unconscious Yeonju. It was a completely situation. Jaehyun couldn't believe how badly Yeonju was injured, and to make matters worse, the goblins were still chasing them. Just when it seemed like everything was over, the power of Gayung's arrow suddenly increased, and the others felt their power and speed surge as their bodies became lighter. This was all thanks to the power of trust, which improved citizen statuses based on how much trust they had in Jaehyun. Jaehyun quickly calculated that the overall trust was above 50%, which meant that their combat abilities improved by 50%. It was a total game changer. Byungho, already believing that Jaehyun was his god, had the biggest status increase and shouted the name of the almighty Jaehyun, fervently thanking him for granting them such a powerful buff from afar. Because of this, Rin's and her friend's loyalty crossed the 30% threshold, making them eligible to register as vassals. Jaehyun wasted no time, instantly turning them into vassals. But damn, Gayung's trust level was exactly 69. Nice. Thanks to their awakening, both girls unlocked incredible abilities: Piercing Arrow for Gayung and Poison Mist for Rin. Gayung shot her bow, shocked by the arrow that seemed alive, effortlessly piercing all the goblins and killing them instantly. Jaehyun then created a new mission specifically for Gayung, with the task of killing 10 goblins using the new Poison Mist ability, with the reward of a skill rank increase. However, Rin's ability was particularly dangerous. It was a deadly Poison Mist, a rank B ability that could hurt teammates if not controlled carefully. Thus, Jaehyun decided that he would examine Rin's ability first, taking special care with her 69% trust level, and then assign her to a special mission. But the main problem was Yeonju. Jaehyun immediately activated his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes, desperately scanning the entire building for any kind of help. After a complete and frantic scan, he noticed a young unconscious girl inside her room. For some reason, Jaehyun started running towards her with urgency. Okay, maybe it was partly because she was an 18-year-old girl. Oops, I'm just kidding. Actually, it was because she was a healer, exactly the missing piece in Jaehyun's Pokemon-style team. He was now standing outside room number 2902. He tried to open the door, but it was locked from the inside with a heavy iron chain. Even if Jaehyun was strong, he wasn't strong enough to kick the door down. At that moment, he remembered that he received a new ability, Invisible Hand. Jaehyun could summon this invisible hand and control it. Damn, if used well, it would surely be useful for his future wife at night. Well, Jaehyun decided it was the perfect time to test this questionable ability. Closing his eyes, he visualized cutting the chain, and voila, a sharp mana scissor formed. Controlling it, Jaehyun effortlessly cut the iron chain as if it were paper. The door opened, and he ran desperately towards the unconscious girl. Finally reaching her, Jaehyun's eyes widened in horror. Her situation was not good. Her lips were sunken into her face, severely dehydrated and close to death. Jaehyun frantically tried to wake her up, shouting her name, shaking her shoulders, but nothing worked. Her condition was severe, clearly a symptom of dehydration. Pale skin, dry and sucked in eyes and lips. Jaehyun had come looking for a healer, but damn, who would heal her now? Jaehyun panicked, not knowing what to do. But at that instant, he noticed something strange. There was a fucking water bottle right next to her. However, for some inexplicable reason, she hadn't even touched it. But now was not the time to think about these stupid mysteries. Saving her was the priority. So Jaehyun's 69 IQ brain brilliantly activated. He created a mission specifically for her. Breathe once, and the reward is your full recovery. This crazy trick cost him about 10 million won, but damn, it actually worked. She took a weak breath, and her dehydration was instantly cured. What kind of overpowered ability was this? Slowly, and the girl began to regain consciousness. Her vision blurred as she opened her eyes, catching sight of Jaehyun hovering over her. Confused and weak, she quietly asked who Jaehyun was and how he had entered her room. Jaehyun explained his name, saying he lived in the apartment above. Still confused, she quietly asked again, understanding, but why was Jaehyun in her room? Jaehyun, maintaining his polite tone, explained that he noticed her condition was extremely bad, so he came to help. At this moment, she still thought she was hallucinating, but after a brief pause, reality hit her hard. She realized that someone had really come to help her. Suddenly, overwhelmed, she began to cry, deeply moved. She couldn't believe that someone came to rescue her after days of starvation and dehydration. Jaehyun, although he hated having to do this in such a sensitive moment, with a heavy heart, called her name and apologized, saying quietly, "Look, I know this is not the best moment, but I desperately need your help right now." As she cried with joy, Jaehyun explained that one of his teammates was gravely injured and he needed her help. But as she listened in silence, her confusion increased even more. What the fuck was this guy talking about? How could she help someone else when she couldn't even help herself, especially when she was literally about to die a minute ago? This seemed absolutely impossible. And to top off the weirdness, this strange guy she just met wanted her to provide medical treatment to his teammate? She began to wonder, suspiciously, how the hell this stranger even knew she was a nurse. Suspicion immediately flooded her mind. Judging by how desperately Jaehyun was asking for help, she didn't think he was dangerous. But according to her, in this godforsaken apocalypse, no one can be trusted. So she cautiously decided to pretend to help, carefully observing Jaehyun's true intentions. Pretending to agree to help, she calmly asked where she needed to go and how she could help. Jaehyun casually asked her to wait a second. He was busy creating yet another mission. Jaehyun created a new mission specifically for her to heal the injured Yeon-ju. The time limit was set to 1 hour, and the reward? Her healing skill level would increase. After finishing the mission creation, Jaehyun handed her some dried oranges, instructing her to eat them and rest, while promising that he would bring his injured friend directly to her room. With that, Jaehyun immediately turned and left, once again leaving her speechless, staring at the dried oranges on the floor and a bizarre system notification hovering before her eyes. In a sudden panic, she desperately shouted Jaehyun's name, asking what the hell this strange notification was and who Jaehyun really was. But Jaehyun, cool as and with a devilish smile, calmly replied that he would explain later, casually leaving the shocked girl on the floor, reminding her that she was too weak at the moment so she should rest. Left alone, she hastily picked up the oranges, frantically peeling them with her trembling fingers. Her mind raced wildly, wondering if she was dreaming. That guy literally created a mission? Meanwhile, as soon as Jaehyun arrived at his room, a system notification warned him that Daejong's trust had increased. Upon seeing this, he realized, just as he suspected before, that the woman didn't fully trust him. Logically speaking, it made perfect sense. Who in their right mind would trust someone who randomly broke into her room like some apocalypse version of Santa Claus? Jaehyun was patiently waiting for his boys to arrive at the room when, suddenly, an intense and strange sensation overwhelmed him. Something was terribly wrong. Without hesitation, he activated his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes, immediately spotting a red tiger chasing Yeon-ju and the others. This terrifying beast had already injured Yeon-ju before, and now it was back, presumably pissed off because it seemed that this tiger was actually the wife of the previous tiger they killed. And damn, she clearly wanted revenge. At this moment, everyone was desperately fighting just to stay alive, their faces painted with pure despair and panic. Jaehyun felt his heart squeeze hard. He realized that this situation wasn't just bad, it was absolutely terrible. That monstrous red tiger with its sharp, ready claws looked completely prepared to tear everyone to shreds. No questions, no mercy. Damn, for real. A really pissed off tiger widow. Jaehyun was completely perplexed, realizing that there was another red tiger. The group was not at all ready for another fight. Their lives were hanging by a thread. While desperately running, Rin's foot suddenly slipped, causing her to fall and badly injure her leg. Gyeong and Dongyeon panicked instantly, thinking it was the end. Rin desperately tried to get up, but her injured leg betrayed her. Gyeong was heartbroken. Rin was like her little sister, and now she watched helplessly as Rin struggled to get up, unable to escape. At this point, the red tiger, opening its fat mouth wide enough to devour a family-sized pizza, was ready to swallow Rin whole. Rin, at that exact moment, sadly accepted her fate. But just in time, when the tiger was about to take a juicy bite of Rin, she mysteriously vanished from her spot, leaving behind only a faint purple aura. The red tiger stood there, shocked, completely confused, thinking what the hell just happened. Meanwhile, Rin, breathing with difficulty and terrified, suddenly found herself sitting right in front of Jaehyun, gravely injured but alive. It was a close call. If she hadn't been a vassal, she would have already been the tiger's lunch. Luckily, nothing horrible happened, and at least this unexpected teleportation bought precious time for the others to temporarily escape from that furious beast. At that exact moment, Byung-ho teleported right in front of Jaehyun with his grandma on his back, and immediately notified Jaehyun that a new citizen was available for registration. Jaehyun quickly agreed, granting citizenship to his grandma, but on the other hand, the danger was far from over. The Red Widow tiger was quickly catching up to the group again, angrier and hungrier than ever. Jaehyun suddenly had a brilliant idea. He decided it was finally time to test the real limit of his invisible hands of pleasure. As the Red Widow tiger charged, ready to crush everyone, Dongjeon realized at that moment that if anyone was to survive, he would have to sacrifice himself. Without even a second of hesitation, Dongjeon heroically stopped running, activated his baseball throw ability, and threw the mana-filled baseball at maximum speed directly at the Red Widow tiger, but it was useless. The tiger dodged the ball effortlessly, jumping high into the air, ready to tear Dongjin to pieces. Gyeong screamed desperately in panic, but Dongjin had already accepted his tragic fate. Knowing very well that he wouldn't be able to escape the beast for long, Dongjin ran as fast as he could, drawing the tiger's attention entirely to him. As expected, the monstrous tiger easily caught up with Dongjin, its sharp teeth seconds away from piercing his skin. But at that exact moment, something shocking happened. Suddenly, there was a huge aura scissor firmly wrapped around the tiger's neck, shocking not only Dongjin but everyone present. The next moment, this mysterious aura hand aggressively grabbed the tiger's throat, mercilessly suffocating the beast and lifting it into the air, squeezing even more as the widow tiger desperately struggled to breathe. It thrashed violently, trying to break free, but it was useless. Dongjin stood there, his eyes wide, completely shocked. What the hell just happened? He was sure he would kiss King Yama's ass today, but here he was, miraculously safe and sound. Gyeong and the others quickly ran closer, but at that instant, Gyeong received an unexpected system notification that scared her even more. Meanwhile, from a much broader perspective, we could clearly see Jaehyun calmly observing the whole situation from above. Jaehyun muttered that there was no need for him to personally hunt monsters with this incredible new ability in hand, especially considering that, with Gyeong making the kill, Jaehyun would earn 4 times the loot from that tiger. With this exciting new mission given, Gyeong quickly prepared her bow, her eyes sharp with determination. As the tiger pathetically struggled to breathe, Gyeong aimed and effortlessly hit the beast's target, killing the tiger instantly. Immediately, the system notified Jaehyun. By killing a level 28 Red Widow tiger, he earned a massive amount of 63,000 huge amounts of EXP, and everyone's trust and loyalty increased significantly. Thanks to this great boost, Dongjeon's loyalty also finally crossed the threshold, leading Jaehyun to smile happily, making Dongjeon one of his precious vassals. The scene then changed, and we now saw Dejong actively healing Yeonju. Although Jaehyun witnessed it with his own eyes, Yeonju's wounds magically disappeared, leaving Jaehyun completely surprised. He then turned to Dongjeon and asked what exactly happened, how they ended up encountering those terrifying red tigers. Dongjeon, with a heavy and sad expression, explained that they encountered them at Byung-ho's grandma's house, where the tigers seemed to have claimed the territory. Guys, I'm telling you, Dongjeon insisted sadly, those must have definitely been mutant house cats transformed into those monstrous tigers. Anyway, back to the story. Jaehyun carefully put the pieces together, realizing it was no wonder something had seemed strange before. Come to think of it, there were no goblins in that area, and now it made sense. It was because of those tigers. If the goblins had occupied the area, Byung-ho's grandma would have been dead a long time ago. Did that mean the tigers were actually protecting Byung-ho's grandma? Could those beasts have been her pet cats? Leaving that question aside and returning to the main story, Jaehyun finally used 73,001 won to grant Gyeong's mission reward. At the same time, Dejong also finished healing Yeonju completely. Dejong, having just healed the grandma, was about to say something when the chubby guy suddenly stepped forward, awkwardly interrupting and asking Jaehyun if he knew that it wasn't exactly the right time. But would they always have to meet here in this tiny, suffocating room? The chubby guy had a valid point. They couldn't continue squeezing into this little room forever. Jaehyun calmly reassured everyone, saying he had already thought about it. He had a plan. Upon hearing this, everyone's faces immediately lit up with joy. Jaehyun confidently explained that room number 2901 was completely empty, and he himself would provide electricity and all other basic necessities there. Anyone who wanted to move into that room could do so freely. Jaehyun then calmly turned to Dabin, explaining more. Rooms numbers 2101 and 2102 were also empty. He would provide electricity there too, so she could tell other survivors that they were free to use the showers and bathrooms there. However, for some strange reason, the duo looked strangely sad. Jaehyun, reading the vibe instantly, knew exactly why the duo was upset. With a sly smile, Jaehyun calmly stated that if they wanted to, the two could even have their own private room to enjoy their private nights, while the others shared the other rooms. But there was a small condition they needed to meet first. Upon hearing this, the duo was completely shocked. Jaehyun, maintaining the dark and intimidating vibe, explained with perfect clarity the condition they had to meet. Simply deliver a message to everyone. The message was direct but tempting. Whoever killed 100 goblins fastest would be rewarded with an entire empty room, fully equipped with all basic necessities, unlimited electricity, water, food, literally everything needed to live comfortably. Just 100 miserable goblins. Easy. Damn. The legendary goblin slayer himself would surely be fucking proud of Jaehyun right now. Jaehyun explained more, coldly stating that their only task was to bring people from everywhere to him, registering them as his citizens. And to accomplish this, they simply needed to kill 100 goblins. At this moment, Jaehyun was walking directly in the footsteps of Lloyd, skillfully manipulating everyone. With a twisted smile, Jaehyun finalized this new mission: kill 100 goblins and claim unlimited supplies. Meanwhile, the scene changed dramatically, and we saw a guy in a red jacket, chased by goblins and desperately fighting to break free. He was about to be captured when, by a miracle, he narrowly escaped towards an open door, sliding on the floor and barely saving his own life. The goblins chased him, but they struggled to fit through the narrow door. Patiently waiting behind that door, his teammates were ready, prepared to kill those goblins. It turns out that the poor red jacket guy was used only as bait. Because of this cunning trick, the group killed the goblins easily, turning the whole situation into a cruel and one-sided massacre. And the leader of this whole group, this complete asshole, whom I personally named Dumbass No.1, threw his spear and killed the last goblin, showing off to the team. But the red jacket guy was not happy at all. After all, he was the only one who had had to constantly risk his life while everyone else had easy kills. Frustrated, he complained bitterly about how unfair it was to always be used as mere bait. Upon hearing this, Dumbass became furious and coldly told the red jacket guy that he was nothing but a pathetic loser, stating clearly that without him, the red jacket guy would undoubtedly suffer a dog's death. Dumbass even ordered him to act like a loyal dog, or he would quickly become goblin food. The situation escalated quickly, leaving the red jacket guy with no other option but to apologize. The scene changed again, and Dumbass, happy and confident that he had killed 100 goblins, went to get the promised reward. But to his bitter disappointment, Dabin had already given that reward to the first team that completed the challenge. And here's the twist. It turns out that Dabin's own brother was the first to kill 100 goblins, giving the promised room instead to an elderly couple. Dumbass didn't like this at all. Visibly furious, he immediately began to complain loudly about how unfair the whole situation was. Dabin's brother then calmly explained that Jaehyun had prepared a special arrangement specifically for Dumbass's team. They were instructed to go to the 30th floor for their reward. Although Dumbass was absolutely pissed, he had no other choice, reluctantly going toward the 30th floor. On the way, Dumbass had a disgusting and mocking smile, questioning why Dabin respected Jaehyun so much. It was hilarious. Did you really think Jaehyun was some kind of god? He continued to openly mock Jaehyun, sarcastically referring to him as nothing more than a ridiculous cult leader. But then, the red jacket guy, whose name was actually Shung Min, discreetly disagreed. He insisted that since Jaehyun was genuinely helping and protecting them, they shouldn't speak ill of him, especially since everyone clearly wanted to stay on Jaehyun's good side. Dumbass, staring at him coldly, clearly didn't like this statement. With a chilling look, he made it clear in silence that this conversation was far from over. The elevator doors slowly opened on the 30th floor. Dumbass, still fuming, whispered coldly to Shung Min that they would finish the conversation later. But as soon as they left, Jaehyun calmly approached them, his chilling aura palpable, with one hand casually in his pocket, his cold eyes fixed on everyone. The entire team immediately fell silent, completely shocked by Jaehyun's intimidating presence. Dumbass quickly composed himself and politely introduced himself, hoping to ease the tense atmosphere, but Jaehyun simply shook his hand casually, calmly complimenting their unique use of the barrier and clever hunting strategies. Dumbass stood there, completely shocked, and nervously asked how Jaehyun even knew about their tactics. Jaehyun, however, didn't bother to answer. Instead, he smoothly jumped straight to the main point. He coldly informed them that electricity, water, and gas would now be provided to apartments 1301 and 1502. Dumbass, still in doubt, cautiously asked how this was possible. Jaehyun calmly replied that it was because they had successfully killed 100 goblins. They had earned it. Then, without even a brief pause, a deeply unsettling and creepy smile slowly spread across Jaehyun's face. In a cold and chilling voice, Jaehyun mentioned Dumbass's previous mockery, specifically the comment about him being a cult leader. Jaehyun coldly stated that he had no interest whatsoever in being treated like a god, or in playing such a ridiculous role. The entire group stood there, speechless, absolutely terrified and confused. How in the world did Jaehyun even hear what Dumbass had said in the elevator? Were there even security cameras everywhere? Jaehyun, with a genuinely psychotic smile, suddenly changed the subject smoothly, casually saying that he actually had a small favor to ask of them. The scene changed dramatically again, revealing exactly what favor Jaehyun had asked of Dumbass. Dumbass and his group ran for their lives, chased by huge and terrifying orcs. Each monstrous step made the ground violently shake beneath them. Dumbass, panting, was terrified to the bone. They turned sharply, desperately running into a narrow alley, exactly as planned. At the corner of the alley was Dongjeon, holding his spear tightly. Due to the narrow alley restricting movement, the orcs got stuck for a moment, exactly as planned. Dongjeon's throwing ability had risen to rank B, which meant he could now throw larger objects with 5 times the damage. With all his strength, Dongjeon threw the spear fast and hard, hitting the first orc and knocking it down. The second orc attacked furiously, swinging its huge club, but before it could hit Dongjeon, a deadly arrow hit its forehead, killing it instantly. This precise shot belonged to Gayung. The last orc barely had time to react before Dongjeon finished it off with another powerful spear throw. With that, the group had successfully completed the mission of killing 100 orcs, and Jaehyun immediately received 3.2 million won. Nearby, a terrified family of 3 was frozen in horror, witnessing the massacre. Dongjeon smiled gently at them, carefully leading them toward Jaehyun's base. As they approached, Jaehyun suddenly noticed a system alert stating that an unknown object was trying to enter. Another notification appeared at the same time, indicating that someone eligible for citizenship had arrived. The system quickly asked if Jaehyun wanted to grant citizenship to the 3 new people. After considering, he agreed. With this decision, the total number of citizens rose to 200, activating a new ability, tax collection. This ability allowed Jaehyun to collect 10% of the citizens' money without affecting their real wealth, although it had a 30-day cooldown. Jaehyun quickly understood the potential of this new ability, realizing that he could recover the funds he had distributed. However, recovering the full amount would take about 10 months. With the urgent need to save his parents, Jaehyun immediately decided that Dongjeon's team should go straight to the Nambumin neighborhood. To speed up the plan, Jaehyun decided to distribute 30% of the funds in advance, seeing this as a necessary investment. Suddenly, another notification appeared. Jaehyun's house declaration skill had just reached level 10, granting him 3 additional skill points. Once again, Jaehyun felt an intense pain, his liver, kidneys, and heart aching horribly, as his domain expanded dramatically, almost doubling in size and covering almost all the nearby buildings. The system confirmed that Jaehyun successfully declared the entire building as his home. Immediately afterward, another message appeared, stating that 1 billion won had been deposited as subsidies, and a new construction function was unlocked. Jaehyun's eyes scanned the displayed options carefully. A solar generator for 133 million, a store for 219 million, and a gym for for 300 million. In addition, Jaehyun had received a total subsidy of 1 billion won, but the annual money generated by the solar generator was only 30 million won per year. This meant it would take at least 5 full years to recover the cost of the generator. Jaehyun stood there perplexed. What kind of disastrous business was this? Deciding it was probably wiser not to waste this huge amount on questionable constructions, Jaehyun instead planned to level up his vassals. But then, to his total shock, Jaehyun realized something crucial. When he tried to use this newly deposited subsidy money, the 1 billion won, to level up Dongjeon, the system rejected him instantly. Jaehyun quickly realized that the funds he had just received were fundamentally different from the money stored in his wallet. This changed everything. Now Jaehyun had this essentially free fund to use specifically for construction purposes. Without hesitation, Jaehyun quickly selected the solar generator. A 24-hour countdown began, and his subsidy balance dropped to 867 million won. Briefly tempted, Jaehyun considered installing a second solar generator, but was quickly met by a serious system notification, warning that only one generator could be installed per apartment building. Accepting the frustrating restriction, Jaehyun shifted his attention to installing the store. The system explained that the store was linked to Jaehyun's supreme recluse skill. Anything in his inventory could be sold directly to citizens, which he instantly realized would simplify supply distribution. Without delay, he installed the store in apartment 101, with a 48-hour countdown to be ready. Finally, he analyzed the gym, which would increase citizens' strength and exercise efficiency by 200%. Imagining how this would accelerate progress, Jaehyun assigned the entire second floor to the gym. A 72-hour countdown appeared. The system informed him that he had 3 skill points. Jaehyun smiled, realizing he had unlocked the supreme infinite money and XP glitch. People would hunt to buy supplies, and he would earn XP and money without doing anything. Now that's passive income goals. Meanwhile, Deoksu, in his armor, cut an orc in half. Dongjeon asked Deoksu what would happen if he threw his spear. Confused, Deoksu handed him the weapon, and Dongjeon threw it with absurd force. In a panic, Deoksu was instructed to cancel the armor and summon it again. The spear magically reappeared in his hand. Both were shocked. Dongjeon had discovered an infinite throw glitch. Deoksu couldn't stop praising Dongjeon's genius. Meanwhile, Gayung was about to use her last arrow when, out of nowhere, more arrows appeared in front of her. At this point, brother Jaehyun was literally playing a real-life Creative Kingdom Come. Gayung was shocked. The system showed a new skill, Omni-Focus, which allows using other skills within Jaehyun's domain. With the arrows reloaded, she took down another orc. The system registered the kill, and Jaehyun received 2,388 won. The mission was completed, and Gayung leveled up. Jaehyun realized he could improve vassal statuses, which filled him with hope to save his parents. Their house was 10 kilometers away. Determined, Jaehyun went to the rooftop, feeling urgency. His focus was on leveling up Dongjeon's group. He checked Kim Jeon's status, level 22, with the skill Crow Familiar for reconnaissance. Then, he reviewed Yeonju's profile, level 33, with the skill Warrior Bear. Finally, he checked Kim Da-jung, level 30, with the skills Healing, Blessing, and Magic Armor. Jaehyun thought about the team. Yeonju and Kim Da-jung were good choices, but Yeonju's low loyalty made him hesitate. He then thought about bringing Yeonju's son back. He tried the resurrection, but the system said he didn't have the money. He decided to wait and created a group mission to hunt a level 40 or higher monster in 24 hours, with the reward of Yeonju's son's resurrection. Failure meant death. He chose yes, and it worked. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It was Yeonju, out of breath. She ran as soon as she saw the mission. Jaehyun said it was possible, but time was short. Yeonju fell to the floor, crying, thanking him. The system showed that her loyalty had passed 30, and she could become a vassal. Later, Jaehyun was at the sink, watching the faucet turn on by itself. He was getting used to controlling things with his mind. Wow, our boy is becoming Magneto every day. He had control over electricity, water, and gas. Today's store profit, 320,981 won, was added to his wallet. He smiled, knowing that the store sold over 1.5 million won. Jaehyun checked the people in the store, feeling in control. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a boy asked a friend about their savings. The friend said the bow cost 150,000 won, and that they only had 10,000, and that it would take 2 weeks. The boy laughed, reminding him that they also needed to pay for food. The friend got annoyed. Jaehyun thought about how everything changed since the store appeared. Even small coins motivated people to hunt. The system showed the current population, 789 out of 11,000. Jaehyun believed the number would soon grow faster. He received another message. He defeated a level 18 orc and earned 1.2 million won. Somewhere else, Yeonju, in her warrior bear form, was killing goblins and orcs. Gayung and Kim Da-jung checked on her. Yeonju apologized for having taken most of the monsters, but Gayung smiled and said it was okay. Jaehyun thought it was a smart move to have put the two together. He checked Yeonju's new status, level 40, with the title 9th Bell. Her trust and loyalty rose to 66. The rank S skill, Berserk, was the craziest. When she saw blood, her strength increased by 300%. While thinking about her powers, a cracking sound resonated. The three women saw a huge orc emerge from the shadows. Yeonju instantly transformed into her beast form, the fierce and unstoppable mother bear, and attacked the orc. The battle began, and the two seemed evenly matched. Gayung shot an arrow, but the orc blocked it with its axe. Yeonju got angry, and the angrier she got, the stronger she became until she doubled in size and attacked. The orc lord, now screwed, had no time to react before Yeonju attacked him. The system notified her of the victory. She defeated a level 28 orc lord, earning a massive reward of 73,000 won. Another message warned that she had unlocked an outpost. The outpost needed a knight to reside there for 7 days, and the price was 1.3 billion won. Jaehyun thought it was too expensive and the time too long. He decided not to build the outpost. He knew the outpost would be useful for the family, but it wouldn't be easy to relocate the grandparents. He could only hope they were alive. With this determination, Jaehyun decided that the next day he would send Dongjeon's group straight to the main house. Back at the subway, Kim Jong watched the battle in shock. He saw Yeonju tear the orcs to pieces, who begged for mercy. Kim Jong wondered how Jaehyun recruited someone so strong. Kim Jong noticed that Yeonju was focused on the goblins. The system showed a new mission, return in 1 hour. Kim Jong knew that even simple tasks could go wrong. Dongjin's group appeared, and he informed Kim Jong that it was time to go back. Kim Jong called his familiar, Kami, to go ahead. Through the crow's vision, he informed them that the way was clear. The group moved forward. Kim Jong noticed a rat, which disappeared. He ignored it, but felt something strange. Going up the stairs, he looked back and saw 2 small red lights in the shadows. The same rat he ignored sped toward the group, signaling danger. The scene changed to Jaehyun bowing before Dongjin's group, hoping they would help him. Dongjin asked if Jaehyun's family was alive in the building. Jaehyun admitted he didn't know. He just needed their help to find out what happened. Byung-ho jumped forward, saying he would do anything his god Jaehyun commanded. The rest of the group expressed their gratitude to Jaehyun. They promised that everyone would help him. Jaehyun thanked everyone and explained the new strategy. Go to Seomyeon Station. He recommended that everyone rest. However, Yeonju asked if Jaehyun couldn't use his powers to teleport his family. Jaehyun was in painful silence. He remembered that he had tried this several times, but it didn't work, as he can only teleport people within his domain. He admitted that he couldn't do everything, but he promised to fulfill the promise he made to her. The system alerted that Yeonju's trust level had just increased. With a smile, Yeonju thanked him. Jaehyun smiled back and encouraged everyone to rest. One by one, everyone left. As soon as things calmed down, Jaehyun received another notification. An unauthorized entity was trying to enter. He granted her citizenship, and Yejin's profile appeared. Level 31, with 0 trust. Her skill was Rat Queen. Jaehyun was perplexed. Had they just gained a woman who could transform into a rat? Suddenly, we go back in time to when Yejin discovered Dongjeon's group in the subway killing orcs. She decided to follow them and arrived at Jaehyun's complex. Children were playing happily, and the place was busy. Yejin, in her rat form, was shocked. She ran to the apartment, but hit a blue shield. The system interface asked if she wanted to become a citizen. The rat squeaked, but nothing happened. She became desperate, but the interface updated and granted her citizenship. The rat ran into the building, but chaos began. People screamed upon seeing the rat and tried to smash it. Yejin fled and accidentally entered the training room, where she saw people lifting weights. She was confused. What kind of muscle-worshipping cult had she entered? At that moment, Yejin woke up from her rat form with a headache. She laughed, euphoric at having found a survivor camp, but her joy vanished. She worried about the monstrous creature that guarded the station she would need to cross to get to Jaehyun's building. Then the scene changed, and we saw that Jaehyun had hunted the rat, and because of this, Yejin's connection with him was disconnected. Another window appeared, about the Rat Queen, rank A. Her ability allowed every rat to follow her, acting as part of her body. Jaehyun's face became serious. He understood that the rat was controlled by an awakened of rank A. He used the Supreme Recluse's eyes to look for her, but couldn't find her. In that instant, an idea hit Jaehyun. He created a simple quest. The Rat Queen must come to the apartment in 48 hours. The reward was a Coke and a Choco Bar. Upon checking the quest, Jaehyun remembered something. He couldn't bring his parents because they were outside the domain, and Yejin was also outside. But she was a citizen, so he decided to test something. People who become citizens are under his control. He changed the quest. The time limit was only 10 seconds, and the punishment was forced summoning. The system approved, which meant if she failed, she would be summoned. Wow! He looked at the screen, shocked. His heart raced. This could change everything. He hoped it wouldn't cost more than 1,000,000,000 won. The countdown began. When it finished, the system showed the result. CEO Yejin failed the quest, and the cost was only 31,000,000 won. Jaehyun felt a great relief. On the other hand, a surprised and panicked Yejin suddenly appeared in the apartment. She didn't understand what had happened. Jaehyun called her by name, showing that he already knew who she was. Yejin asked who he was and how he knew her. Jaehyun remained calm. He said he was the one who gave her citizenship and brought her there. He introduced himself and reassured her. To make her feel more welcome, Jaehyun offered her a Coke and a Choco Bar. Seo Yejin took the snack, trying to understand. She asked if all of this was Jaehyun's doing. He agreed. She was perplexed, asking, who the hell is this guy? A god. She begged Jaehyun to help the 35 people she was responsible for. Jaehyun rejected, explaining that it was impossible. Upon hearing this, she started crying, begging Jaehyun to help her family. Jaehyun realized something important. Seo Yejin never interacted with him directly, but he managed to grant her citizenship. This suggested that the rat spirit was an extension of her. He wondered if this connection could help him bring her family. In that instant, the system interface appeared, showing Yejin's stats, level 31, with 37 trust. Her ability was Rat Queen. Jaehyun noticed that her trust had already increased. He turned to Yejin and asked if she would do anything to protect her family. She confidently affirmed she would. Jaehyun agreed, explaining that there was only one way to save her family, but it required her total trust. She declared full trust, and a system notification appeared. Her trust level rose to 50, and her loyalty to 33. She met the conditions to be a vassal. Jaehyun activated the vassal registration process. A blue aura surrounded Yejin, and she watched herself, surprised. When the process finished, her stats changed drastically. She now had the titles of 10th Seed, Knight, and Tamer. Her trust increased to 52, and loyalty to 33. New information revealed that a tamed being's stats grow based on loyalty and trust. Jaehyun saw that Yejin's evolution class was A+, which meant the tamed rats would continue to grow. Although I wouldn't be surprised if one day her rats grow muscles and start walking on 2 legs, Jaehyun asked Yejin if any of her rats were near her family. She didn't answer right away, but he insisted she send one. Yejin followed his command. At the same time, Jaehyun activated the the Supreme Recluse's eyes and shared the rat's vision with her. The rat ran toward Yejin's family. When it arrived, food and drinks appeared in front of them. Jaehyun received another notification. Seo Yejin's trust level went up again. He realized that her ability and his eyes created a perfect synergy. He had just gained the ultimate reconnaissance ability. Yejin asked Jaehyun if he was talking about the Nambumin neighborhood. Jaehyun confirmed. Yejin got excited, as she knew the neighborhood and could send a rat to safely scout the area. Using the rats, Jaehyun could confirm if his family was alive without risking the team's safety. Yejin assured Jaehyun she would take care of it. The system showed that her trust and loyalty levels increased. Jaehyun encouraged her to leave right away, suggesting she use the subway tracks, but Yejin was terrified and screamed it would be suicide, as a horrible monster lurked at Seomyeon Station. Jaehyun, intrigued, pressed her for more details. Yejin described it as a monstrous and cruel creature. Jaehyun, determined, asked her to send a rat to explore the monster. Yejin agreed. The scene shifted to the rat running frantically to the subway. Fear was on the rat's face. A strange sound echoed, and it saw a huge snake-like monster chewing on an orc lord's head. With a single gulp, the snake swallowed the entire orc. The rat peed itself in fear. The snake noticed it and lunged forward. Miraculously, the rat managed to dodge and fled. Jaehyun watched it all. He realized the snake was much stronger than he expected, likely above level 40. Damn, Jaehyun thought. That terrifying thing probably belonged to Sasuke's summoned snake in Naruto. Yejin observed Jaehyun's reaction and agreed that Seomyeon Station was dangerous. She suggested skipping a station and going to another. Although the path was longer, it would be safer. Yejin reassured Jaehyun, saying his team was strong enough. Jaehyun thanked Yejin. If not for her warning, his team would have been in trouble. Jaehyun informed Yejin that she could stay in apartment 2701, but would need to clean it. Yejin thanked him and left. As soon as Yejin left, Jaehyun smiled. Before, he would have had no choice but to avoid the monster. But now, thanks to Yejin's abilities, things would be different. Jaehyun had an evil plan. He immediately instructed the system to install a solar generator. Jaehyun watched the panels being installed, but realized they wouldn't be enough for almost 800 citizens. To improve living conditions, they would need more funds and labor. He formulated a plan to establish a 3-shift system to maintain facilities and resource collection. Finally, Jaehyun concluded that more aggressive hunting was the key. Elsewhere, Dongjeon's team was running from bat-like monsters. Ga Young and her colleagues shot arrows, killing them with ease. Afterward, she asked if anyone was hurt. Relieved to see everyone was safe, she sighed in relief. However, her sister mentioned the snake monster lurking at Seomyeon Station. Ga Young reassured her, saying they would be fine, as Jaehyun could summon them back. With renewed confidence, the group moved on, but came across a ruined train, surrounded by the grotesque bodies of orc leaders. Everyone froze in horror. The youngest team member vomited. Suddenly, a chilling sound approached, and they saw a huge, monstrous snake. Daeoksu screamed in despair, but in the next moment, Dongjeon grabbed Ga Young and shouted for everyone to duck. The snake let out a deafening roar, creating a shockwave that threw everyone back. The shockwave was too intense. The guys protected the women, but everyone's heads felt like they were going to explode from pain. At that very moment, the system clearly notified them, ordering them to kill the snake. Dongjeon felt immediate terror, but to his surprise, the giant snake was acting slowly. Seeing the golden opportunity, Dongjeon quickly exchanged glances with Yeonju, and, without hesitation, threw the spear with all his might. Flashback to a few minutes earlier. Jaehyun had explained that the giant snake was known for devouring its prey alive. He realized it didn't care about small creatures, it just swallowed them whole. Using this behavior, Jaehyun came up with a brilliant plan. He sent Yejin to shove her tiny rat directly into the snake's nostril, and boom, she obeyed, running inside the snake's body. This was where Jaehyun's evil plan truly began. With a smirk, he opened his inventory and from inside the rat's body, released poisonous gas. But that wasn't enough. Next, he poured gasoline into the snake's stomach and violently lit it. In an instant, the snake's body exploded in flames, being destroyed from the inside. The intense explosion shook even Yejin. Jaehyun quickly checked on her, and she assured him she was fine. Jaehyun praised her courage and returned to the battle. He observed the scene, deciding not to kill the snake directly. Instead, he planned for his knights, Dongjeon and Yeonju, to deliver the final blow so he would gain 6 times the experience and rewards. Returning to the present, Dongjeon and the group realized the shockwave wasn't from the snake, but from the internal explosion Jaehyun had caused. Seeing the opportunity, Dongjeon threw the spear with maximum force, killing the snake instantly. Immediately, the system granted Jaehyun a huge amount of EXP and 1.8 billion won. Since they defeated the boss of Seomyeon Station, Jaehyun could now build an outpost there. Dongjeon and Yeonju's abilities increased, and the domain level rose to 15. As a bonus, Jaehyun received 3 bonus skill points. A new message appeared, notifying that people qualified for citizenship had been found. There were about 200 people. Jaehyun granted them citizenship on the spot. The system updated, announcing that the total number of citizens had reached 1,000. Because of this milestone, everyone gained a new ability called Baseline, which gave Jaehyun 100% sharing of XP and money from all citizens. Upon seeing this, Jaehyun was perplexed. It seemed like outright cheating. In that instant, Yejin approached and asked if Jaehyun could bring her family into his domain. Jaehyun after a pause, smiled and agreed. Filled with joy, Yejin thanked him. Jaehyun asked if she could control the rats again. Yejin confirmed she could. The scene shifted to Yejin's rat, which ran to a new location and bumped into Dong Jaehyun's group. What they saw was a massacre. Hundreds of orcs were dead, half-eaten. Yejin's rat ran forward, trying to communicate with the group to follow it. Deoksu was surprised, wondering if this was another one of Jaehyun's abilities. Intrigued, the group followed the rat. Meanwhile, Jaehyun deactivated the Supreme Recluse's eyes and returned to his room. Now, it was time for his personal growth. He had 3 skill points to use. As the territory was expanding, he decided the best choice was to strengthen the Omniscient Eyes ability. This ability combined perfectly with Yejin's rat power, improving their teamwork. The moment he upgraded the ability, a sharp pain hit Jaehyun's head. Elsewhere, Donghyun's group ran into a goblin horde. Jaehyun could now see the exact levels and stats of these goblins. They were level 8, moved in organized groups, used spears and clubs, were agile, and could see well in the dark tunnels. Watching this, Jaehyun realized how valuable this vision could be for scouting and survival. He started thinking about hunting goblins to acquire this ability, and also remembered his goal of decreasing the resurrection cost. For this, he decided to assign more quests for others to fight and grow, saving resources and increasing efficiency. Next, Jaehyun focused on another ability, dignity maintenance. As the population grew, maintaining trust and loyalty was increasingly vital. He used a skill point to improve dignity maintenance. Immediately after, a loud, sudden gunshot broke the silence. Jaehyun's eyes turned to the noise, his face becoming serious. He realized the shot didn't come from the building, but from underground. The scene shifted, revealing something bizarre. Goblins casually holding guns, wearing jackets and pants. What the hell? As the goblins opened fire, Dongjian signaled for everyone to duck. Bullets flew dangerously close, and they realized they had no chance in a direct gunfight. Dongjian was confused, wondering how the goblins got guns, but he didn't need to worry. Byung-ho teleported behind the goblins. With lethal precision, he pierced their chests, dodging bullets as he sliced through the goblins. Another goblin aimed its pistol, but an arrow hit its hand. At the same time, Ga-young and Deoksu ran to join the fight, and Yeonju transformed into her beast form. Together, they annihilated every goblin. On the other hand, a system message appeared, notifying Jaehyun about a new item, guns in his store, with unlimited ammo. Holy crap, this was a game changer. But Jaehyun realized the problem. He couldn't just sell the guns. If ordinary people saw guns for sale, their excitement for hunting monsters would go up. But he knew not everyone was trustworthy. Until now, he had accepted everyone as a citizen, assuming he could manage the troublemakers. But now, introducing guns was dangerous. They gave immediate deadly power. If the wrong person used this lethal power, chaos could begin. Envy, resentment, jealousy, these common emotions could turn into serious problems. Because of these risks, Jaehyun decided that only trustworthy people with high loyalty would be allowed to use guns. He knew right away who the first person should be. Meanwhile, Dongjian's group had killed all the goblins. Suddenly, to Byung-ho's surprise, a gun in a mysterious box appeared in front of him. With deep reverence, Byung-ho took them, silently thanking his god, Jaehyun. At this point, Byung-ho adored Jaehyun so much that he would consider marrying him. Afterward, Dongjian's group continued advancing, with Yejin's rat guiding them. They reached a door. Dongjian opened it, and inside, they found a group of terrified people. Elsewhere, Jaehyun was calmly walking outside with Yejin, enjoying the moment of peace. Suddenly, a new system alert warned him that an unknown entity was trying to enter. Shortly after, another notification appeared, indicating that someone qualified for citizenship was nearby. The system asked if he wanted to approve. Without hesitation, Jaehyun granted citizenship. Her sister Dabin teased her, saying she smelled good, asking if she had showered. Yejin laughed, saying she now had hot water. From a distance, Jaehyun watched their happy reunion. After a moment, he called out to Yejin, saying apartment 2701 was hers, but it might get crowded if she wanted to put more than 30 people there. Seeing her concern, Jaehyun said he would give her 3 more rooms because she deserved it. Joyfully, Yejin thanked him, promising to work tirelessly. Jaehyun received another notification. Yejin's trust and loyalty levels increased. Hong Dal-rae, Lee Seung-jun, and Han Jung-soo's trust and loyalty also improved. Observing the interface, Jaehyun remembered that he had leveled up before and forgotten to check the rewards. He saw a new feature, the Guardian Beast Management System. He opened it and almost fainted. To unlock it, it required 1,000,001 won. As he processed the cost, a gentle voice interrupted him, asking if he had a moment to talk. Jaehyun invited her in. It was Hae-rin, the youngest of Dongjaeon's group, who seemed nervous. She said she had something important to discuss. Jaehyun invited her to sit down. Hae-rin apologized, her voice trembling, and asked to leave the group. She felt useless, thinking no one would notice if she disappeared. Jaehyun encouraged her to speak, and she broke down in tears, confessing that the monsters were terrifying, and she felt useless because she couldn't use her poison mist near her colleagues. Jaehyun had expected this conversation. He understood that poison mist was dangerous if used incorrectly. He reassured her, saying the timing was perfect, as he needed someone trustworthy to help him. Dabin, who cared for the injured, was exhausted and had asked for help. Jaehyun said he needed someone honest and compassionate, and she was the right person. He reminded her that no one was useless if they kept trying. He reminded her that the poison mist was unique, and that one day it would shine. If she couldn't fight outside, she could help inside. Jaehyun bowed deeply. Hae-rin was shocked, felt touched, and smiled. The system showed that her loyalty went up to 100. She wiped her tears and promised to do her best. Jaehyun smiled, promising to continue to count on her. Moments later, Jaehyun considered unlocking the new feature. An interface appeared, appeared, showing that it required 1,000,001. He decided it was worth it and clicked yes. A golden magic circle appeared, and in the center, a golden crystal egg began to crack. The blinding light forced him to close his eyes. When the light was gone, he saw a small, adorable black bird. He activated the Supreme Recluse's eyes and saw it was a three-legged divine raven, level 1. It had the energy of the sun, but was a baby and needed protection and sun to grow. Jaehyun named it Little Blackie. The bird flapped its wings excitedly but kept going, and Jaehyun realized it was hungry. He gave it a bag of chips, which the bird ate happily. Afterward, Blackie fell asleep, like a lazy cat. At that moment, Jaehyun received an alert. Blackie's level increased, and the solar generator's efficiency went up by 100%. Jaehyun remembered that each generator generated about 80,000 to 100,000 won per day. Now, with Blackie's boost, the annual gain rose to 90,000 won. He decided to install solar generators in the 10 new buildings. The 24-hour countdown began. Satisfied, Jaehyun went to apartment 3001. As soon as Fatty opened the door, Jaehyun greeted him and said he wanted to entrust him with the responsibility of managing his money. Fatty froze. Flashback. Jaehyun thought about his tax collection ability. If he entrusted the money to someone, he could profit, as the ability generated 10% profit per month. He chose Fatty because of his high trust and loyalty. Back in the present, Fatty was shocked. Choi Hyung-jun, the Fatty, had a trust of 89 and a loyalty of 98. His power was gorilla strength. Jaehyun felt confident with his choice. Without saying a word, Jaehyun transferred 1 billion won to Fatty's wallet. The system confirmed the transfer. The quest cost 100 million and 30,000 won, including the 10% fee. But it was worth it. Fatty's trust went up, while his loyalty reached 100. As Fatty was already a vassal, the maximum number of vassals Jaehyun could have also increased. Fatty asked if he should keep the money without touching it. Jaehyun, seeing Fatty's perfect loyalty, reassured him, saying he could use a little if he needed to. Happy, Fatty thanked him. Shortly after, Dabin appeared and asked Jaehyun if she could choose anyone for her new team. Jaehyun agreed, saying she could include Yoo Hye-rin. Since Dabin would be the team leader, Jaehyun decided she would receive double pay. The news made Dabin happy, and her loyalty went up instantly. She thanked him and left to find Yoo Hye-rin. Once everyone was gone, Jaehyun took a deep breath. It was finally time to have a serious and difficult conversation. Resolute, he went to apartment 2109, where Ha Dong-geon's group was. Upon arriving, Jaehyun gathered the team and explained the dangerous situation at Seomyeon Station, where an incredibly powerful monster awaited them. The area was relatively safe. There were no monsters on the streets or on the subway tracks near Seomyeon Station. Between Bayom-Naegol and Bayom-il stations, the monster population was low, an opportunity Jaehyun knew they needed to seize. As he spoke to the team, Jaehyun remembered Yoo Hye-rin's outburst. That moment affected him, reminding him that these people were risking their lives for him. It was a huge weight on his shoulders. Thanks to Yejin, they discovered the threat at Seomyeon Station much earlier. If they had discovered it late, the situation would have been deadly. Catching the threat early gave them an advantage. Jaehyun understood the cruel reality. The world was brutal, and anyone could die. He wanted to protect those he liked. With all these thoughts, he informed the group that the next morning they would go to Jigalchi Station. Later, in his room, the system screen appeared. The solar generator's power had increased by 100%. Additionally, Blackie leveled up again and unlocked the power of the sun and elemental magic. As Blackie's owner, Jaehyun inherited this power. Elemental magic? That's huge. Curious, he raised a finger, and a small flame lit up. The sensation was strange but familiar. Later, in an isolated area, he imagined a gigantic flame. He stretched out his hand and focused the energy, but only a small flame flickered. Jaehyun was disappointed, but curiosity replaced disappointment. He remembered the special gas created by his ability. If he mixed the gas with the flame, the results could be explosive. Now it was just a baby flame, but one day, it could become a terrifying fire, a true monster ability. Feeling excited, Jaehyun ended the test and returned home. While eating, another notification appeared, informing him that 2 solar generators had been built. Jaehyun smiled, thinking about Blackie, who had leveled up 3 times. Thanks to her boost, the generators were now 8 times more powerful, and the surplus turned into money. More power, more freedom. Things were getting amazing. While he was eating, Yejin came in and thanked him for letting her rest. Jaehyun reassured her, saying she deserved the rest, as her abilities were top-notch. Without hesitation, he said he would need her help again. Dongjeon's group was waiting at Seomyeon Station, and he wanted her to guide them. Yejin agreed, saying the rats were already exploring the subway tracks. She said they could get to Choryang Station without problems. However, Jaehyun asked what would happen after Choryang Station. Yejin became serious. She warned him that the danger began at Busan Station and suggested he witness it personally. Without delay, Yejin sat down and activated her power, and Jaehyun activated his eyes of the Absolute, connecting to the rat's vision. Nothing prepared him for what he saw. The path ahead was a horrible mess. Piles of rubble blocked everything, and the tracks were flooded. It was impossible to advance. Yejin explained that one of her rats had gone further and found total destruction. No intact structures. What caused that? Were his parents still alive? While sharing the vision, Jaehyun noticed something alarming. His eyes widened. It was a colossal footprint, big enough to knock down buildings. Everything clicked. It wasn't an earthquake. Something huge had passed through there. Was that you, Colossal Titan? Was Eren nearby? Suddenly a loud, deafening sound echoed nearby. The walls trembled. Each step seemed more intense. Jaehyun wondered if the monster was approaching. The tremors continued, and he started to worry that the house might collapse. Another earthquake shook the building, and he asked Yejin if she was okay. She reassured him, but wondered what was causing it. Suddenly, an urgent voice called him from the elevator. Jaehyun and Yejin ran out and saw Fatty in a panic. Jaehyun asked what was happening, but Fatty gestured for them to follow him. Jaehyun, Yejin, and the others followed him. The feeling of dread increased. In Fatty's room, a 60-meter titan was demolishing buildings with ease. It was a giant cyclops with a single red eye. Jaehyun muttered that his feelings always came true. He watched helplessly as the cyclops destroyed buildings and advanced. Fatty and the others panicked. Even Jaehyun felt real fear. Could he defeat a titan? Could he protect everyone? He was close to an emotional collapse when Yeonju stepped forward with determination. She wanted to fight to avenge her son. Jaehyun saw the focus and determination in her eyes. He believed in her courage. The system interface appeared, announcing a new quest: defeat the Cyclops in 24 hours. The reward was 1 day of resurrection for Yeonju's son. The punishment was a day of pain. Jaehyun wasted no time and gave a briefing. He assigned the teams. Team 1, Yeonju, Dongyeon, Daejung, Deoksu. Team 2, Ga-young, Byung-ho, Kim Ji-yeon. Team 3, Jaehyun and Yejin. He would guard the area, and the others would go to their positions. He reminded everyone that he counted on their strength and courage. Everyone followed the orders. Afterward, Hyarin warned him that the residents with military experience had gathered at the gate, and the others were evacuated to the basement. Jaehyun thanked her and told her to go to the basement too. However, Hyarin hesitated. Although she was terrified, she wanted to help. Jaehyun saw the fear but also the courage. She admitted she was scared but wanted to contribute. Hearing this, Jaehyun smiled and instructed her, along with Yejin, to go to the gate. He found the number of people small. Many had chosen to hide instead of fight. As he thought about this, a person approached. It was the red jacket guy. He asked Jaehyun what they should do. Jaehyun asked about Baekseong-yeob and the twin brothers. The red jacket guy looked away, silent. The silence revealed everything. Jaehyun realized that Baekseong-yeob and the twins fled, hiding in the basement. A wave of disappointment hit him. He understood that hundreds of people, including Baekseong-yeob, chose to ignore the danger and prioritize their own safety. For Jaehyun, those people had chosen comfort over courage. He saw them as cowards who abandoned responsibility, leaving the burden of fear to the brave. But despite the frustration, Jaehyun would never forget the 101 brave souls who answered the call. These people weren't idiots. They didn't show up because they didn't understand the danger, but because they knew the truth. If no one fought, everyone would die. They chose to protect themselves and their families. Jaehyun remembered a phrase he heard. Courage isn't about not being afraid, but about acting despite it. This hit him hard. In a brutal world, those who acted despite the fear were the ones who ensured everyone's survival. And right there, in front of him, were 101 brave people. In silence, Jaehyun thanked each one of them. Determined to reward their bravery, he opened the system, and suddenly, guns and unlimited ammo rained from the sky, shocking everyone. At first, the group hesitated, but upon holding the real guns, feeling their weight, a new hope was born. They might have a chance against that monster. The giant Cyclops was terrifying and roared, making the buildings tremble. Nearby, Dongjin hid, holding a spear. He aimed at the Cyclops' leg and threw the spear with force. The weapon buried itself deep in the monster's leg, which roared in pain. Furious, the Cyclops looked for the origin of the spear, toward Dongjin, who froze. The monster began to advance, dragging its wounded leg. At that moment, the mother bear, in her beast form, attacked from behind. She dug her claws into the Cyclops' already wounded leg, inflicting more damage. The Cyclops roared and fell to its knees, but Yeonju's charge wasn't enough. It got up, took a giant stomp, and threw her far away. In a single blow, it hurled her like a doll, and she hit a distant building. It seemed like the end. The Cyclops bent down, ready for the final blow. But before it could finish, a loud voice echoed through a megaphone. It was Deoksu, calling the Cyclops an idiot and saying its balls were in its eye. Surprisingly, the Cyclops understood the taunt and looked at Deoksu. Its huge eye saw the spear still in its leg, and it understood that Deoksu was the bastard who threw it. The Cyclops became furious and began to advance toward Deoksu, determined to destroy him. Deoksu was terrified. He knew the monster was coming to kill him. He turned and ran desperately, like a rat fleeing a cat. From afar, Jaehyun saw that the plan had worked. The Cyclops was heading for the trap. Jaehyun gave the signal for everyone to get ready. Meanwhile, Deoksu ran to the barrier. The Cyclops pursued him with slow but heavy steps. Deoksu collapsed exhausted inside the barrier, and the Cyclops reached the limit. Jaehyun gave a signal, and a black raven flew toward the Cyclops, pecking and attacking its eye. Annoyed and in pain, the Cyclops closed its eye. Taking advantage of the distraction, Ga-young, already positioned, shot an arrow. The Cyclops tried to defend itself, but the arrow went through its hand and hit the closed eye. A roar of agony echoed. Amid the chaos, Byung-ho teleported above the monster and threw several rats into the Cyclops' open mouth. The plan was working perfectly. As the next phase began, Jaehyun summoned an explosive gas inside the Cyclops' body, which began to swell. He raised his hands and activated the Sunfire magic. A colossal explosion happened inside the Cyclops, and black smoke covered the sky. When the smoke dissipated, the Cyclops figure appeared. It was severely burned and lifeless, leaning against the barrier. Everyone was shocked. They thought they were going to die, but the Cyclops seemed defeated. But Jaehyun knew something was wrong. The Cyclops wasn't dead. The system hadn't confirmed it. He ordered everyone to stay alert. Everything was going perfectly, but suddenly, Fatty called Jaehyun with a trembling voice, asking him to turn around. Jaehyun turned carefully, and to his shock and horror, saw the Cyclops' red eye staring at him. That murderous gaze seemed to want to devour him right there. Jaehyun panicked, unable to believe the monster had survived. But before he could process what was happening, the Cyclops raised its hands and slammed them into the barrier. The barrier held the blow, but Jaehyun grew anxious, doubting it could withstand another attack. He activated the invisible hand to protect the citizens. The Cyclops attacked again, explosion, and the barrier trembled but still held. However, the surrounding buildings were not so lucky. The shockwaves were destroying them. With 2 or 3 more blows, the entire building would collapse. At that moment, Dongjeon jumped into action, launching a rain of deadly spears. Yeonju and the others joined the attack, but it wasn't enough. Each blow only made the monster more furious. When it seemed impossible to defeat the beast, the system notified Jaehyun. The solar generators had reached 100% capacity, and someone was asking to use the energy. The request was from Blackie? Jaehyun was shocked. Was it trying to help? Jaehyun remembered that Blackie's power used solar energy, and with no other options, he granted permission. In the sky, a bright yellow sphere, looking like a miniature sun, began to form, absorbing all the energy from the solar panels. The heat was so intense, it threatened to melt the buildings. Jaehyun realized, horrified, that 300 million won had been consumed for a single attack. The energy concentrated in his room, and from there, a figure emerged in an explosion. Blackie had evolved. Now she had 3 eyes, large feathers, and looked like a fucking majestic black phoenix. She opened her powerful beak, charged the solar energy, and launched a devastating ray at the Cyclops. The attack made a hole in the Cyclops' chest, but the monster was still not dead. Seeing the opportunity, Yeonju transformed into her fierce mother bear form, leaped into the air, and delivered a final blow, killing the level 51 Cyclops. Immediately, Jaehyun received a huge amount of EXP and 31 billion won. He leveled up and felt a pain in his head. His domain expanded to cover more buildings. Additionally, Jaehyun gained another 10 billion won, exclusively for construction. In pain, he fell to his knees. Blackie flew to him, rubbing her beak on his nose, trying to say she was the true hero. Jaehyun praised her work, but still couldn't believe that one attack cost 300 million won. Blackie had nothing to say, but Jaehyun was happy. After all, he gained 31 billion won, and everyone survived. Truly, a total win scenario. Blackie killing the giant titan with a single blow was the most unbelievable thing he had ever seen. Smiling, Jaehyun caressed Blackie for her extraordinary bravery. Both he and Blackie turned to look where the noise was coming from. It was Yeonju, the werebear woman. And right then, Jaehyun had a sudden realization. For just a moment, the soft sound from the system window changed into something else entirely. It was a sound Yeonju had been hoping to hear for a long, long time. A little while before that happened, inside an old abandoned building, a guy was quietly using his special ability to fill a small bottle with water. The people around him were incredibly thankful, just happy to finally have some clean water to drink. The man with the ability stood there, lost in thought, worried because they had run completely out of food. He had a line of people waiting to get the precious water he could create, but it was clear that their food was almost all gone. He knew that was the absolute limit of what they could do with the few things they had. A deep sense of unease started to grow inside him, because it seemed like they would have to leave that place, a spot that had felt safe until now. Just then, he and everyone else in the building felt the whole place shake violently. As anyone would, he immediately asked if it was an earthquake. Right after, another man came running in, yelling and begging everyone to come see what was happening outside. When the man said the word monster, the guy with the water ability froze completely for a second. Without wasting any time, he started running, dashing up the stairs to get to the rooftop and see for himself. Once he got to the top, he was left breathless by what he saw. The enormous Cyclops was still standing, radiating immense power and fury, while the white-haired man trembled next to him, anxiously asking what they should do. The purple-haired one, Jaehyun, was already thinking ahead. He told the other guy to go and hide everyone in the basement to keep them safe. Overwhelmed and desperate, Jaehyun ran his hands through his hair in frustration, trying to come up with a plan. But it was obvious, fighting the Cyclops was absolutely impossible. He tried to reassure the other man, explaining there was nothing they could do against a thing like that. In the background, without them noticing, the powerful light of Blackie's upcoming attack had already started to form. The men could only speak in quiet, fearful whispers, saying all they could do was pray the monster wouldn't find them. And in the background again, the Cyclops was being obliterated. It caught them totally by surprise. They had no idea what had just happened, what kind of power had been unleashed. But when Hyuk saw it, when he really understood what was in front of him, he knew right then and there. This power came from an awakened person, but someone on a level way beyond his own. Hyuk called out to the silver-haired man, addressing him as Hyun, and told him to gather the people. Hyun, completely shocked, asked if he had lost his mind. Was he really suggesting they go toward that? But Hyuk was certain. Even though he didn't know who the awakened one was, he knew exactly what needed to be done. If they really wanted to survive in this horrible, unforgiving world, they had to stand with the person who had the power to take down a creature like that Cyclops. As they started walking toward Jaehyun's location, the people silently hoped and prayed that whoever they were about to meet would be a good person, because they had no other choice. Their fate was completely up to chance. They eventually arrived at the apartment complex and immediately figured this had to be the place. After all, the buildings were still standing, completely untouched in a world that had been torn apart. Hyun, walking ahead of the group, said in disbelief, "How can these buildings be standing in a world that's just fallen apart?" But then he suddenly ran right into some sort of invisible wall. Right after that, a message from the system appeared in front of them, saying, "Entry prohibited." Another message followed immediately, asking if they would like to become citizens. They accepted, and the system quickly replied, showing they had been successfully granted citizenship. But with their new status came an initial mission. They were told to go to Jaehyun's apartment on the 30th floor. When they got there, Jaehyun was already waiting for them. Strangely, he was already calling them by their names, even though they had never met. Jaehyun introduced himself too, calmly stating his own name. At that moment, Hyuk felt it deep inside, a certainty that this man was the one who had forced the giant Cyclops to its knees. And now that he was face to face with him, his instincts were screaming louder than ever. Without a second thought, Hyuk reached out, took Jaehyun's hand and introduced himself, sincerely asking Jaehyun to take care of them. He knew in his heart that this was a moment he couldn't let go of. Somewhere else, in a quiet and calm place, Yeonju the werebear was serving a warm meal. This time, a bright and genuine happiness could be seen in her eyes as she cheerfully called out the name of Si-woo. Si-woo was her little boy, her beloved child, who was happily eating, and she lovingly asked him if the food tasted good. With a big smile, he replied that it was absolutely delicious. The little boy then turned to his mom with innocent curiosity and asked whose birthday it was, since they were eating seaweed soup, a dish you traditionally have on birthdays. She responded with a warm and loving hug, holding him tight while he told her how much he loved that food. At that very moment, someone opened the door. It was Jaehyun. Seeing him, the little boy excitedly called him Wizard Uncle. Yeonju asked Jaehyun if everything went well with the new residents, and he confirmed that it did. He had already given them food and a place to stay. Then Jaehyun apologized for something, and Yeonju, confused, asked why he was saying sorry. He explained that the newcomers wouldn't be able to leave the house, and that he hadn't expected that to be a rule. But Yeonju didn't seem bothered by that at all. She calmly replied that just being there, together like that with her little boy, was more than enough for her. Holding her son even tighter, she said with sincerity that she was truly content now. Right after that, the system showed a message saying her loyalty had increased significantly, officially registering her as a retainer. But even if the system hadn't said anything, Jaehyun could already tell from her expression, her voice, and her gentle actions that her heart was full. He could feel Yeonju's emotions clearly, without needing any proof. More time passed, and the mother and son kept enjoying their time together, now watching television side by side, smiling and laughing. And during that simple, peaceful moment, Jaehyun found himself thinking deeply about his own family, about how long it had been since he had seen them. He wondered how they were doing, if they were eating well, or if they were sick. He closed his eyes and imagined the worst, thinking something terrible might have happened to them in this chaotic world. Right then, Blackie appeared, making a bit of noise. The small creature started playing and having fun with the werebear and her son. Watching them all together like that, a quiet thought settled in for Jaehyun. There was no need to rush. It was just one day, one peaceful, ordinary day, and he understood how hard Yeonju had worked for this day to finally happen. At the same time, he also thought about how Yejin's rats were, at that very moment, heading toward the main house. When the rats got there, he would be able to deliver whatever his family needed. So today, looking at the mother and child smiling and happy, Jaehyun made a choice. He would focus only on taking care of them, because this was the moment when Yeonju's one and only dream was finally shining brightly. Then Jaehyun suggested they sleep in the master bedroom. But with her child still wrapped around her in a loving embrace, Yeonju gently said no, saying they could stay in another room instead. Even so, Jaehyun insisted they use the master bedroom, pointing out that it was the coziest and most comfortable place for them. With a warm and reassuring smile, he added that it was the right thing to do. Without hesitation, Yeonju lovingly stroked her son's hair, and together, they thanked Jaehyun for his kindness and thoughtfulness. Soon after, they went to the room, wished him a good night, and the little boy waved sweetly at Jaehyun before going in. Jaehyun watched them go with a deep sense of contentment in his heart, a faint smile on his face. The lights in the house slowly dimmed, and a gentle lullaby started to echo softly through the home, drifting from the bedroom as the child, still awake, listened quietly. Meanwhile, in the living room, Jaehyun lay on the sofa, listening to the sweet lullaby that went on for a long time, sung so tenderly by Yeonju's voice. It had been a very long time since he had heard a melody like that. Yet just by hearing it, his body started to relax, and his eyes gently closed, just like a child falling asleep in their mother's lap. A new day began quietly and peacefully. Jaehyun started the morning enjoying a breakfast lovingly made by Yeonju and her little boy. Afterward, they all got comfortable in the living room to watch the boy's favorite cartoons. The child was so excited, laughing at every scene as if he were seeing it for the very first time. Soon, Sihwa started chasing after Blackie, who had been peacefully enjoying the sunlight until he was suddenly disturbed, which clearly didn't make the creature happy. Later, after exploring all the new toys they had, Jaehyun, her son, and Jaehyun lay down on the floor together for a short nap. Between colorful drawings and laughter, every second of the day was filled with joy and real happiness. But time waits for no one. With Blackie on his shoulder, Jaehyun quietly cried, consumed by the silent sadness of only being able to give a single day of life to Yeonju's beloved son. Soon after, Yeonju knelt down on the floor, saying her final goodbyes while holding her son tightly, pouring all her love and strength into that hug. Still too young to fully understand the seriousness of the moment, the boy innocently asked if she was crying. With tears already streaming down her face, she struggled to keep her voice steady and calmly whispered that she wasn't. But with his tiny hand resting gently on her cheek, he could feel the tears. So softly, Siwa started wiping away her tears, doing his best to comfort her and asking her kindly not to cry. Yeonju held him tightly again, and in a trembling voice, she finally admitted that she was afraid. Afraid of the world because a world without him was far too terrifying. Then, with the innocence of a child, the boy simply called her mom and promised with total confidence that he was right there with her. Those words, so pure and real, made Yeonju break down even more, tears flowing from the sheer weight of her sorrow and despair. Even as Sihwa kept trying to reassure her, Jaehyun stayed in tears. He took a step back, slowly pulling away from her arms. Looking her directly in the eyes, he firmly promised that he would always be by her side. Overwhelmed by sadness, she called his name with a choked voice, but without stopping, he continued walking toward the setting sun. While behind him, she shakily called out that she still had so much left to do for him. He suddenly stopped. He turned around slowly, and with a gentle smile full of warmth and joy, he said that he loved her, just as his body started to disappear into the light. At that exact moment, hearing those words, words, she froze. Still kneeling on the ground, her body started to shake, and the immense pain made it almost impossible for her to respond. But as all mothers do, even in the middle of unbelievable pain, she smiled through the tears and managed to whisper back a quiet, "I love you." And with those final words, Siwa said goodbye with a peaceful smile. In the blink of an eye, his body vanished completely, and Jaehyun's hand, overcome by the unbearable pain of saying farewell, fell limply to the floor, while Jaehyun watched her silently, deeply concerned and heartbroken by her side. Soon after, she tried to stand, but the pain she felt was so overwhelming, so crushing, that her body simply wouldn't let her rise. Moved by the scene, Jaehyun could only think that hope is like a delicate flower that chooses to bloom right in the middle of despair. With his eyes closed tightly, he came to a painful conclusion. Those who hold on to hope must be ready to face the deepest sadness, no matter how cruel. Then he held out his hand to her and gently urged Yeonju not to lose herself in grief, promising her that this moment was not the end. At that, Yeonju lifted her head, looked at Jaehyun, and in a hesitant, trembling voice, she asked if that was really true, if this wasn't really the end. With total conviction, Jaehyun answered that if there was even the slightest chance, he would bring her son back, again and again, as many times as it took. His words lit a new spark of hope, and Yeonju felt a renewed sense of strength. At that exact moment, the system showed a message. Yeonju's trust level had reached 100%, and she had gained primordial vitality. The scene then shifted to the red-haired man, who was screaming with uncontrollable fury. The twins, who had been listening to everything, became visibly frustrated when they realized that the standard spear, the orc spear, and all the money the red-haired man had carefully saved had vanished without a trace, leaving him completely confused and unsure what to do. The red-haired man, clearly angry, asked about his brother's stuff. His brother explained that when he had woken up, every single one of his things had disappeared without warning. The other twin then added that many other people had lost their items too. He pointed out that there was a pattern. Everyone who lost their belongings had not been there when the summoning happened for those who had finished military service. Then one of the twins turned and said they should have gone back to that place sooner. Suddenly and without warning, he was grabbed by the collar of his shirt and pulled hard. The red-haired man, filled with anger, demanded to know if the twin was trying to blame everything on him. The twin quickly explained that he had misunderstood. Still, the red-haired man stayed furious, raising his voice even more as he shouted that they had all agreed from the very beginning that following Jaehyun's orders was a stupid decision. Facing the rising tension, the brother, already anxious and losing his patience, admitted that yes, Jaehyun's plan had been a foolish one from the start. Hearing this, the red-haired man finally let go of his brother's shirt. It was only then that it hit him. He might have been kicked out because of his own actions. Now tense and nervous, he remembered there had only been one similar case before. He started to think about the story of a man who had tried to get involved with an underage girl. That man was caught and immediately expelled, only to be found dead in the middle of the street shortly afterward. As he kept thinking about the situation, he came to the uneasy conclusion that even now, with that giant and all the chaos, the survivors still gathered in abandoned apartments. So, it was very likely that there were more than enough people who would be happy to make sure he was the next to be expelled. He was completely consumed by the hatred he felt for the situation he was in. The image of the man in the red jacket appeared clearly in his mind, calling him a bastard, and he imagined just how happy that bastard must have been when he got a weapon. Soon after, the red-haired man scratched his head, restless and agitated, trying to understand how everything had gotten so out of control. Somewhere else, Jaehyun watched everything, the tension around the red-haired man, and said to himself that this was only the start of the punishment he had carefully planned for him. Back with the red-haired man, a system window suddenly appeared behind him, showing a new mission, which caught him completely by surprise. Startled and not believing it, he immediately turned to see the message for himself. The system window revealed a new mission: hunt 20 goblins in 24 hours. If they succeeded, the reward would be a small amount of experience. But if they failed, they would suffer 1 minute of extreme, unbearable pain. Now back to Yeonju's most recent impressive achievement, the terrifying primordial vitality. It's a rare and highly sought-after ability that Jaehyun now also has. It's known for making regeneration incredibly fast, always in proportion to how bad the injuries are. Jaehyun could barely understand what he had just seen. Not for a second had he imagined that after reaching 100 trust points, Yeonju would get that exact ability. Still deep in thought, Jaehyun soon realized that, for now, this ability wouldn't be very useful. With his eyes fixed on the system window, he kept following his own thoughts. After all, he wouldn't be the one fighting. Even if he were to leave the building, the chances of getting seriously hurt were pretty much zero. Even so, the fact that such a powerful skill was the reward for reaching 100 trust points was definitely worth noting. His thoughts then went to Byung-ho, who was also getting close to that same 100-point level. The idea of what might happen next started to form in his mind. If Byung-ho were to get an ability after hitting 100 trust points, and if Jaehyun also got that same skill, one that would let him instantly teleport to any location he could see, then the possibilities would expand dramatically. Thinking even further, Jaehyun started to imagine a future where this teleportation ability could be used with the Absolute One's Eye, along with the help of an activated advanced base. Right then, the system showed a message about the advanced base, a safe zone that could be set up outside of Haven. When activated, it temporarily gave the authority and protection of the city, as long as a citizen of Knight rank or higher was inside. However, if enemies were in it for more than 1 day, the base would be automatically destroyed. Going back to his thoughts, Jaehyun concluded that as long as he had enough mental strength to handle it, he would be able to travel to the advanced base. With that in mind, Jaehyun made a firm decision. From that moment on, his main goal would be to strengthen his mental fortitude. Because of that, all his upcoming missions would be focused on improving that specific attribute. At that very instant, someone called his name and explained they needed his permission to leave now, as they were feeling more stable. It was Yeonju who said she would personally handle bringing Jaehyun's family back. Hearing this, Jaehyun realized the mission should have started the day before, but he knew the delay was all his fault. Yeonju thanked him for his valuable time and understanding. She then promised she would find a way to repay his kindness. Without showing any particular emotion, Jaehyun couldn't help but think that she had read his mind. He made a lighthearted comment, asking if he really seemed like the impatient type, and confessed that even though he was thankful, her words made him a little embarrassed. Yeonju responded gently, saying he definitely didn't seem impatient, and admitted that if she had been in his shoes, she probably would have acted the same way. With a soft smile, she confessed that in the end, everyone values their own family the most, and that she fully understood how precious that one day Jaehyun had given her and her son was. She thanked him sincerely again for what he had done. Jaehyun smiled modestly and said he appreciated her understanding. He then asked her to go to Unit 2901, where a group of people was already waiting for her, promising he would join them shortly. Yeonju gave a respectful bow and with a quiet yes, walked toward the designated spot. Sometime later, it was explained why Jaehyun had not sent the group directly to Seomyeon Station. Because of the Cyclops attack, a large part of the tracks near the station had caved in. Not just the tracks, but the station itself had suffered massive damage and was almost completely unusable. Facing this situation, Jaehyun decided that new routes needed to be opened. To do that, it had already been 24 hours since Yejin had started sending her rats to look for a way. Apparently, she had finally found a new access point. Jaehyun activated his absolute one's eye skill, wanting full control and awareness of the situation. At that very moment, something unexpected caught his attention. The system showed a message about a level 7 tamed giant rat. Immediately, a wave of nervousness went through Jaehyun's body as he understood what this meant. Yejin had evolved. Still shocked, Jaehyun wondered if this was the result of the new ability Yejin had gotten after being officially registered as his retainer. In addition to this, Jaehyun noticed that something was following the rat, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't figure out what it was. Suddenly, his vision picked up on something even more alarming. A swarm of zombies of different levels, level 9, level 11, and level 13, emerging right behind. A jolt of fear went through Jaehyun's whole body as, through his powerful ability, he watched this troubling scene start to unfold. Facing that situation, the rat dashed forward at high speed, desperately trying to get away from the zombies that were chasing it with endless determination. But in a completely unexpected turn of events, the rat suddenly stopped. It turned to face the coming enemies, and without showing the slightest bit of fear, growled aggressively at them, showing its teeth with a fierceness that didn't match its size. The zombies quickly surrounded the rat from every angle, blocking any way out. Yet even when faced with so much danger, the rat stood its ground, refusing to move even a single step back. From a distance, Jaehyun watched the scene. Realizing the rat would probably die for no reason if it stayed there, he thought about causing a gas explosion to take the zombies down with it. Nevertheless, even with the threat closing in, the rat remained focused, taking an even more aggressive stance. With a sudden burst of explosive speed, it charged forward. Despite being completely surrounded, the rat managed to dodge every single zombie attack, skillfully weaving between them with surprising agility. Still watching from afar, Jaehyun was thoroughly impressed by what he was seeing. After getting away from the zombies, the rat leaped forward and kept going. Amazingly, it came out of the fight without a single scratch and kept sprinting toward the exit. With only a short distance left, the rat took one final leap and shot through the opening to the outside. However, something was already waiting for it on the other side, silently watching its approach. With its eyes fixed on the rat and its sharp fangs showing, the creature let out a low, dangerous growl. It was ready to pounce at any moment. Instantly, the rat froze, completely paralyzed by a huge fear in the face of the predator's threatening presence. From afar, Jaehyun was caught completely off guard, unable to hide the shock on his face as he watched the unexpected confrontation. In an instant, the level 23 land shark lunged forward with terrifying force. With its huge mouth wide open, it bit down in a single, clean motion, swallowing the rat whole. The scene shifted to Jaehyun, who stood in silent despair, deeply troubled by what had just happened. He wondered what kind of creature that was, but more than anything, his eyes widened as he recognized the location, Nampo Station, just a few kilometers from his own home. This hit him hard, making it clear that creatures as deadly as that one were probably roaming near the very place where his loved ones lived, only making the anxiety in his chest worse. Trying to keep his composure, he quickly admitted that he had to hurry. Time was no longer a luxury he could waste. The scene shifted again, this time to Dabin, who was crouched down, sorting through a few boxes. She was clearly exhausted, but also visibly relieved to have finally finished. Suddenly, someone called out to her, the person in charge of that job. She turned her head and saw that it was Jaehyun, who had arrived, thanking her for all her hard work. With a small smile, Dabin replied that she didn't think it was hard work at all, especially since she was being paid for it. She then asked what the new problem was this time. Jaehyun, a little uncomfortable, looked away as he tried to gather his thoughts and figure out the best way to explain the new situation to her. Immediately sensing his hesitation, Dabin became visibly concerned. Now sounding tense and more anxious, she told him to just say what was going on. With a calm and careful tone, Jaehyun explained that he wanted to ask for Yuhiran's help for a specific task over the next couple of days, and that he hoped Dabin could handle things in the meantime. Taken by surprise by the sudden request, Dabin forced a smile to hide her nervousness. With a slightly shaky voice, she asked if he expected her to be completely responsible for everything on her own. Jaehyun then replied that he would only be leaving it in her hands for 2 days. She already knew this meant a lot of work and responsibility. With a skeptical look, she asked if if she would get paid extra for the overtime hours she would definitely have to work as the acting lead for those 2 days. Hearing her question, Jaehyun gave a slight smile. Then, with an excited tone, he promised to pay her double for the overtime. The moment he said it, Dabin's face lit up with joy. She could barely contain her excitement, now completely energized and ready to handle whatever came next. Somewhere else, a thick green mist, released directly by the system, completely covered Yuhirun's body. The scene quickly moved to another location, where everyone in the group was now sitting around a table, all eyes on Jaehyun as he got ready to start the mission briefing. Jaehyun began by explaining that, because of the huge Cyclops, getting through Siamayan Station had become much more difficult. He said it would be a shame to completely stop using the subway line. Soon after, Yejin stepped in to explain that the section between Siamayan Station and Bayamnagol, all the way through to Koryang Station, was still perfectly fine. According to her, there were no monsters along that part of the route, so the group could cross it without much worry. She then put a piece of paper on the table, which showed the first main goal of the mission, to secure the route to Bayamnagol Station. The man with glasses, visibly uneasy, started to think that the best way to get through the current route would be to fly over it. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Deoksu interrupted, not to say anything important, but just to compliment Yejin on her amazing talent for drawing maps. Jaehyun quickly cut through the mood and brought the conversation back on track. He restated Yejin's explanation and then pointed to a specific area on the map, noting that they had to be extremely careful before they reached their final destination. He then told the group that about 500 orcs were currently active near a large supermarket complex. Hearing this, Dongjin immediately asked if they would have to fight the orcs directly. Yejin responded clearly, stating that fighting the orcs was not part of the plan. They only needed to get to Bayamnagol Station and use the underground subway line. She promised that she had found a route with no orcs at all, with only a few lower-level monsters that needed to be cleared along the way. Quietly, Jaehyun remembered how much he had invested before the mission to make sure almost everyone in the group reached at least level 30, with only Fatty and Hiren not quite there yet. He believed that would be more than enough against goblins. Jaehyun continued by explaining that they should get to Koryang Station without any significant problems. However, he then immediately pointed out the real obstacle that was ahead, Busan Station. The moment he mentioned Busan, Deoksu panicked, fearing there might be another giant creature there. But Yejin quickly said no. Her worry wasn't about another giant, she said, but about the condition of the railway tracks between Koryang and Busan. She then revealed that this particular area was filled with a huge swarm of zombies, and unless someone in the group had an ability to wipe out monsters in extremely tight spaces, using that route would be a serious and dangerous challenge. Everyone was left stunned by the news, especially Hiran. Trying to stay calm, Hiran focused and slowly found the courage to speak. Still nervous, she called Yejin by name and with trembling hands, said that she thought her ability might be able to help in this situation. Sometime later, the system showed a message saying that the 100,000 weight limit of her poisonous mist had just been reached. Seeing this message, Hiran felt a deep frustration that her contribution was already at its limit. She opened a nearby door where Jaehyun and Yejin were waiting. Both of them immediately started praising her efforts, telling her she did an exceptionally good job. Jaehyun asked if she was feeling okay. Hiran confirmed that she was. Even though she had felt completely drained at the beginning, something powerful seemed to push her through, and now she felt fine. What she didn't know was that the strength she had felt came from Jaehyun, who had secretly upgraded his retainer management level. Jaehyun thought about the cost of the upgrade. It had been expensive, but ultimately worth it since he ended up earning billions in return. Still unsure, Hiran then asked Jaehyun if he was really sure it was okay for her not to go in person. Jaehyun calmly reassured her, explaining that just staying in place and making poisonous mist was more than enough for what the mission needed. With all preparations now complete, Jaehyun activated his Supreme Recluse's Eyes ability and officially declared the Operation Go. Immediately, through his ability, he saw a huge swarm of zombies exactly where they had expected. Suddenly, something caught the zombies' attention, and they all turned at the same time to face whatever was coming. It was a level 3 rat charging quickly toward them at full speed. The zombies were momentarily stunned the instant they realized what, or rather who, was coming. Following the plan with careful precision, Jaehyun opened his inventory in the system. A thick and poisonous green mist was released, spreading quickly over the horde of undead. In perfect coordination, the rat dashed forward at high speed, weaving through the bodies and leaving the zombies behind. Hiran's poisonous mist, when inhaled, causes paralysis by targeting muscles like the diaphragm, eventually leading to suffocation. However, the targets this time were zombies, creatures that are already dead and don't need to breathe. That's why Jaehyun had already expected this limitation and had prepared a backup plan. He had told Yejin beforehand to take over when needed. Soon, among the group of undead, several rats waited patiently, ready for Yejin's command. As soon as the order was given, one of the rats lunged toward a fallen zombie. Through the reflection in the zombie's still open eye, the system captured the exact moment the rat showed its teeth and sank them viciously into the creature. At that precise instant, a system message appeared. A level 11 zombie had been successfully hunted. Along with the experience gained, a deposit of 120,085 won was transferred directly to the digital wallet. But the momentum was suddenly interrupted when Yejin called out to Jaehyun in distress. With urgency in her voice, she told him that something seemed to be wrong with the rats. At that exact moment, the system showed a troubling message. A rat had reached level 9. This news instantly put Jaehyun on edge. He quickly realized the potential danger. If that rat were to touch zombie blood, it might get infected and turn into one of them. Even more alarming was a far more terrifying thought. Yejin herself might have been exposed to contamination through bites or scratches during the battle. In response, Jaehyun immediately asked if the rats were still obeying her commands. Yejin confirmed confirmed that they were, although she noted they had become noticeably more aggressive. Relieved, Jaehyun let out a soft breath and said that everything seemed to be going well, at least for now. Internally, he started to think about what was ahead. If they could get to Jigalki Station safely, then maybe, just maybe, he would finally have the chance to reunite with his family. But just as this thought formed in his mind, it was suddenly interrupted by a system message. An unauthorized person was trying to get into the shelter through the main entrance. Confused and alarmed, Jaehyun stared at the message, struggling to understand what was happening. Before he had time to act, a second message appeared. The system said that a group of 157 people met the requirements for citizenship and asked if he wanted to grant it. Relying on his gut feeling, Jaehyun confirmed. Immediately, another system message was displayed. The total population had now reached 3,000 residents. As a result, a new ability had been unlocked, Economic Activity Subsidy. Reading this new development, Jaehyun felt a brief moment of worry, unsure of what the consequences might be. But then, a small smile slowly formed on his lips. After all, this might actually be a good thing. The system continued to show new information, this time announcing that salaries would now be paid to citizens, with the amount determined by their titles or positions. The wages would be paid separately from the chief's wallet, depending only on the person's assigned role in the community. Reading this update carefully, Jaehyun realized this would be the perfect chance to give official titles to Dabin and the whole team responsible for managing public facilities. After all, a weekly salary of 700,001 won perfectly matched a daily wage of 100,001 won, making the accounting simple. Tapping the system's screen, he said that there was no longer any need to pay people manually, especially since doing so before meant giving up on reduced taxes. At the speed things were going, it became clear to him that they needed to expand the department responsible for public facilities. After all, the money given to citizens through the Economic Activity Support Fund was essentially free resources provided by the system. It wasn't a small amount either. Even the 100,001 won paid to each employee was a lot. Doing a quick calculation in his head, if there were 300 workers on the payroll, that was already 30 million and won per day. And if all positions, from basic workers to general managers, were filled, the total amount paid daily could easily reach 50 million and won. Thinking ahead, Jaehyun envisioned that as this money moved around, the total income he got from his tax collection ability would keep growing. On the other hand, the citizens would inevitably spend that money in his store, effectively bringing it right back to him. This made him realize that giving titles to as many citizens as possible was probably the most profitable long-term strategy. Yet he still wasn't completely sure which titles would be most fitting besides facility management. Soon, another idea popped into his mind. Positions related to maintenance, cleaning, and security would be practical places to start. So, before doing anything else, he went ahead and made Dabin the general manager. He remembered that she had already accepted Fatih and Hiran as members of the team, although he couldn't quite remember who the other members were. Just then, something caught Jaehyun's attention. It was the system again, this time showing a message that Dabin had reached 100 loyalty points, officially registering her as a retainer. At that moment, Jaehyun realized something important. Once a citizen reaches 100 loyalty, they automatically become a retainer. And now he began to wonder, do all retainers get a new skill at that exact point? Curious, Jaehyun got ready to check and see what new skill Dabin might have gotten. But just as he was about to click on the system, he was interrupted by an unexpected sight. Hiran, completely relaxed, was sound asleep on the sofa, even drooling a little. Watching the scene, Yejin looked a little unsure and asked if they should wake her up. Jaehyun replied that they should let her rest. She had done her job and must be completely exhausted. Smiling faintly, he admitted to himself that even though she tried to look fine, she probably went through something difficult and pushed herself right to the breaking point. If anyone deserved a break, it was her. Jaehyun activated his invisible hand ability and gently picked her up, carrying her carefully to a bed in one of the rooms so she could sleep more comfortably. Returning to the living room, the two of them talked quietly, agreeing that Hiran was probably having a tough time. Jaehyun then turned to Yejin and asked how she herself was doing. Yejin responded calmly that nothing was difficult for her, that she was doing perfectly fine, especially now that they had reached the tracks near the station. Jaehyun nodded in understanding and told her to keep up the good work. She smiled and told him to leave it to her. However, at that exact moment, her expression changed a little. Something made her hesitate. Jaehyun immediately noticed and asked if something was wrong. She stammered a little and replied that all of a sudden, the connection wasn't working anymore. Jaehyun, caught off guard, asked what she meant, and she told him to wait a second. Closing her eyes, she tried to reconnect with the link, but apparently it was no use. She then explained that it was probably the distance. It seemed to be just too far this time. Jaehyun asked whether the link had been working properly before. She said that it was possible to go a little beyond the maximum range if the link was already set up beforehand. However, the link's reach was now only as far as the central station. She then turned to him and asked what they were supposed to do now. Without an immediate answer, Jaehyun fell into thought. He realized that something always seemed to go wrong at a critical moment, and just beyond the station was the house where his family was supposed to be. He had been counting on using one of Yejin's rats to check the house before making a move. Clenching his fist tightly, Jaehyun mumbled that this was a complication. Still, he asked Yejin to try to re-establish the link from the central station in any way she could. She agreed, saying she would give it her best shot. Closing her eyes again, she began to focus her powers to restore the connection. With the vision of zombie rats moving through the station still in his supreme recluse's eyes, Jaehyun reminded himself that they had to try every possible option, and until then, all Kim could do was hope, with all his heart, that his family was still safe. The system now showed the current locations of everyone in the mission. Yejin's rats were moving ahead to scout the path, while Dongjeon's group stayed further back, following at a safer distance. The scene scene then shifted to the station where Dongyeon's group had just arrived. Everyone stood frozen, completely overwhelmed by what they saw. The whole area was a scene of total devastation. All the surrounding buildings had been turned to rubble, and huge footprints, much bigger than a human's, were deeply pressed into the ground all over the place. John, the man with glasses, stared at the destruction in disbelief and finally mumbled that the sight was incredible. The archer, noticing he was distracted and not focused, told him to start scouting the area immediately. Following her command, John ordered his raven, named Blackie, to start flying above the area. After some time watching through the raven's eyes, he reported that there didn't seem to be any monsters nearby. Deoksu then spoke up, saying that the station itself also seemed to be free of any goblins, and that because of the massive rock slide that happened earlier, they should be able to move through the area without much trouble. John agreed, and commented that it was probably because no sane person or creature would dare go near a place with so much destruction. With a hint of worry in her voice, the healer mentioned that night was falling fast, and that they should find somewhere safe to stay until morning. The archer quickly reassured her, explaining that based on how goblins usually act, nighttime was actually the safest time, since goblins tend to hide or go to sleep once it gets dark. At this point, Dongyeon looked deep in thought. After a moment of silence, he spoke, saying that they should keep moving. If anything really dangerous happened, there was a good chance Jian would summon them back right away. Suddenly, one of Yejin's small rats appeared, making faint gestures as if trying to show them something important. The whole team stopped, recognizing it immediately as one of Yejin's specially trained rats. They took this as a sign to follow it without question. Quietly and carefully, they started to follow the rat as it scurried ahead, guiding them through the eerily silent night in the ruined city. As they walked along the path, someone commented that the station ahead looked like it had been turned into a shallow lake. John asked if that might be from the giant's rampage. The archer replied that it was very likely. The ground had shifted a lot when the buildings fell, which could have easily created sunken areas filled with water. While they kept walking near the edge of the water, something started to move beneath the surface of the lake. Slowly, almost unnoticed at first, something big began to rise, coming completely out of the water in front of them. Both Jian and Deoksu immediately felt that something was wrong. They noticed strange movements in the ripples, something that didn't match the natural motion of water. The others asked them what was going on, and Jian replied that he had just heard something that didn't sound like it belonged there. He squinted and looked carefully ahead, trying to make out details in the dim light. Suddenly, he pointed toward a distant figure and said that there was someone up ahead. As they all looked, they tried to figure out what they were seeing. The silhouette looked human at first, and they wondered if it might be a woman. But as their eyes adjusted and they looked more closely, they noticed something strange, something moving behind her. It was a tail. The creature stared directly at them with a strange intensity, and then it opened its mouth wide and let out a deafening, high-pitched scream that cut through the still night air. In immediate panic, the healer shouted a warning to everyone, telling them to cover their ears as fast as they could. The creature, despite looking like a woman, was no ordinary monster. What stood before them, shrieking in a voice that seemed capable of tearing through their very minds, was in reality a siren. In a sudden, desperate reaction, everyone in the group instinctively raised their hands to tightly cover their ears, trying to block out the piercing, bone-shaking scream of the siren. Deoksu quickly started to show visible signs of exhaustion, struggling to keep his hands pressed firmly against his head, his arms trembling under the strain. Meanwhile, Yeonju looked around in shock, unable to understand what was happening, her voice full of disbelief as she questioned the situation. Deoksu, even more bewildered, realized with growing horror that his body was starting to move on its own, his limbs betraying him, as if something else were controlling them. Moments later, as if pulled by an unseen force, both he and Yeonju started to slide helplessly toward the edge of the lake. The pull was strong and relentless, and they were dragged across the ground without being able to stop. When Yeonju hit the ground and felt the cold water, she immediately understood the danger. Watching Deoksu move toward the water so fast, she felt that if he kept going, he would be in serious trouble. Suddenly, at that very moment, sharp fangs came out of the water and lunged toward her feet, forcing her instincts into high gear. Reacting instantly, she tried to swim upward to the surface, but the monstrous creatures grabbed her legs with vicious strength, pulling her back down into the water with raw, angry force. Meanwhile, back above the surface, Dongjin and the others were still in a battle of endurance, struggling to withstand the siren's terrible scream. Their faces twisted with pain, their bodies weak. They tried to hold out just a little longer. Amid the chaos and panic, the healer closed her eyes and focused, gathering all her remaining strength. With a surge of energy, she cast a protective magical armor over the group, wrapping them in a glowing defensive shield. Now protected by the magical barrier, Dongjian felt a noticeable difference. He said that he felt much stronger, more able to resist the siren's weakening scream. The man with glasses then asked, almost out of breath, what exactly the young healer's power was. Exhausted and barely able to stand, she pleaded with them to hurry and save Deoksu and Yeonju before it was too late. But just as she finished speaking, something in the water caught her eye. A dreadful blue creature, barely visible under the surface, began to come out of the depths of the lake. From a distance, the rest of the group watched the movement and started to question, what are those bastards? Before anyone could answer, the creatures launched a sudden, brutal attack, moving with terrifying speed and aggression. Sensing the coming fight, Dongjin immediately called out to everyone, telling them to get ready. He warned them that the creatures were getting close fast. Without a moment's hesitation, the monsters leaped through the air, heading straight for the group. Dongjin quickly raised a steel rod with both hands, getting ready for the impact, ready to fight back. With powerful force, his weapon hit the creature's strike, sending shockwaves through the air. Just as the creature began to recover, it was hit by a well-aimed arrow, finally falling down. However, only one of the monsters was was defeated, while several others kept coming out of the shadows. The female archer, clearly frustrated, mumbled under her breath about the endless wave of creatures. Without delay, the monsters reached the surface, surrounding the group from all sides with terrifying speed. In growing distress, Donggyeon insisted that they couldn't waste time. They had to save Deoksu and Yeonju now. Meanwhile, from the other side of the lake, something began to get the creature's attention. It was the werebear woman returning from the depths, carrying Deoksu in her strong arms. As she came up, Deoksu gasped and coughed, getting the water out of his lungs. He mumbled that he honestly thought he was going to die. Overcome with relief, the group's faces lit up with joy at the sight of their safe return. Deoksu then turned to Yeonju and, with deep sincerity, thanked her for saving him. But their moment of reunion was suddenly interrupted. The bastards started their relentless attack again, not giving the group a second to breathe. The team quickly realized the creatures weren't going to let up, not even for a moment. Deoksu immediately activated his magical armor, his body lighting up with protective energy. As the monsters kept charging forward, he yelled to the group that they would hold the line and fight until the very end. In that moment, the werebear woman planted her feet firmly and got ready to strike. As one of the creatures lunged forward, she threw a heavy punch that landed squarely on its face, sending it flying backward through the air. The creature violently crashed into a thick wooden pillar, splintering it with the force of the impact. On top of that very pillar, a goblin's body had been tied and hung. At that instant, both Dongjin and Deoksu looked up and shouted for everyone to move away quickly. Without hesitation, the group jumped back just in time as the place they had been standing was hit. Byung-ho immediately turned and asked Dongjin if he was okay. Dongjin replied that he was fine, and asked what had just happened. As he saw the wreckage more clearly, Deoksu froze, unable to speak. It was the body of the goblin, still tied to the broken pillar that had fallen from above. As the group stared at the unsettling sight, the man with glasses told everyone to look up. When they did, they were horrified by what they saw. Many goblins, their bodies tied and hanging high above, arranged in the shape of a massive cross. Dongjin commented that the group had been so focused on the danger below that they hadn't even noticed what was above them. And in that moment, he came to a terrifying realization. These bastards don't care whether they're victims or monsters or humans. Just then, the female archer's bow slipped from her hand and fell to the ground. Her body started to shake uncontrollably, and she was completely speechless. She just couldn't believe what was in front of her eyes. In complete silence, she wondered to herself, could that man really be my father? Suddenly, one of the creatures charged forward at full speed. Dongjeon watched in horror as the beast sprinted directly toward the defenseless archer, who stayed frozen, completely unaware of the incoming attack. Without hesitation, he desperately screamed her name. At that very moment, a loud gunshot echoed through the air. The bullet hit the creature in midair, striking it down and sending it crashing to the ground. Holding the weapon was Byung-ho, who immediately turned to ask the archer if she was all right. Dongjin praised him for his quick reflexes in such a bad situation, but soon noticed something was terribly wrong. The archer was now kneeling on the ground, visibly shaken, her expression distant and broken. Suddenly, the man with glasses appeared, urgently calling out to Dongjeon. He said he might have found a way to deal with the situation they were in. He explained that through Blackie, he had been able to watch the surroundings from above, and that's how he found out something crucial. The painful sound that had been tormenting them was also what was controlling the creatures. Dongjin was taken aback by the news. The man with glasses added that he still couldn't fully understand what the siren was saying, but he noticed that every time she opened her mouth, the fish-faced creatures reacted and started to move. He then said that if they could find a way to cut off the sound, it was very likely the creatures would lose their coordination and go away because they wouldn't have a leader. In the middle of this tense and more hopeless situation, Dongyeon agreed that the idea was worth trying. However, he was worried that the creatures wouldn't give them a chance to make it happen. Wanting to be clear, Deoksu asked directly if the whole plan was simply about stopping the sound. Dongjeon confirmed it with seriousness in his voice. Then, with determination in his eyes, Deoksu declared that he would be the one to bring that thing down, and that he had a plan. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, the siren opened her mouth once more, releasing the dreadful sound, and like obedient soldiers, the creatures responded as if getting ready for another coordinated attack. Watching their behavior closely, Dongjeon noticed that the creatures were changing their formation. The man with glasses guessed they must have realized the group's new goal was to shut the siren down. Dongjeon then turned to Deoksu and asked if he could really count on him. Deoksu confidently answered yes, urging everyone to trust him, and made it clear that all they had to do was open a path for him. He would take care of the rest on his own. Without hesitation, Healer said she would stay behind to protect the group. And with the plan now in motion, the group charged forward with total determination. Each member of the team focused only on creating that crucial opening for Deoksu, attacking the enemies without mercy, and taking down one creature after another with relentless resolve. Dongjin paused for a brief moment, looked back at Deoksu and shouted for him to move now, that this was the chance. Deoksu locked onto his target, planted his feet, and gripped his halberd with precision and strength. Then with all his might, he threw the weapon through the corridor, aiming straight for the siren. The weapon cut through the air at incredible speed, but the siren reacted quickly, dodging with ease. The halberd missed and kept going, clattering past her. The group froze in shocked silence, watching as the opportunity they had worked so hard for vanished in a single instant. Deoksu remained completely unfazed. The siren burst into a crazy laugh, along with her ugly creatures making fun of his failure. But Deoksu simply smiled, calm and collected. With a sharp look in his eye, he asked Dongjin if he had already forgotten something. Confused and frustrated, Dongjin didn't understand what he was talking about, until in a sudden realization, his eyes widened. With a hint of sarcasm, Deoksu then asked, "What's the best way to deal with with a fish. As he spoke, he lifted his hand and activated the recall command on his halberd. The weapon obeyed, and on its way back, it sliced cleanly through the siren's back, stabbing her and cutting off her laughter for good. At that moment, the system notified the group. A level 33 siren had been hunted down. Experience points had been given. The halberd returned to Deoksu's hand as everyone turned to stare at the siren's lifeless body. The fish-faced creatures became confused, clearly lost without their leader, and quickly went back into the depths of the lake. This sudden disappearance brought a wave of relief over the group, as they now had one less threat to face. Without wasting a second, Dongjun went to the archer and gently asked how she was doing. She was still trembling, unable to calm herself. Concerned, Healer turned to Dongjeon, asking what they should do now. Dongjeon thought about going to find Jaehyun. Then, the archer suddenly revealed, with a trembling voice, that one of the bodies hanging on the crosses above was her father. Dongjeon was speechless. He quickly turned around, unable to accept that his father-in-law could be among those beaten-up victims. Overwhelmed by a deep, unbearable sadness, the archer collapsed into uncontrollable tears, grieving for her father. Beside her, Dongjeon fell to his knees, consumed by panic and disbelief. The whole group around them felt the weight of her sorrow as if it were their own. And right there in front of them, hanging from a cross in a terrible state, was her father's body, a heartbreaking sight that hurt the soul of every person who saw it. At that very moment, the system showed a mission reconstruction screen, this time with the archer as the target. The reward? To bring her father back to life. However, the system clearly warned that bringing him back was only possible within the boundaries of the absolute domain. Staring at the screen in a mix of urgency and desperation, Jaehyun tapped quickly on the system window, trying to finish the reconstruction process. Yejin, seeing him in such a state of despair, was absolutely stunned by his behavior. But then all of a sudden, Jaehyun stopped. He started to think more deeply about the situation and the trust the group had placed in him. He knew that if things had gotten to a point where lives were really in danger, he would have been summoned immediately. With that in mind, he tried to convince himself that this meant there was no real danger, no other option, no action to take. But even as he tried to calm his thoughts, a nagging doubt kept coming back to him. Was it really true that there was no other choice? Being dragged underwater, surrounded by a group of armed fishmen, didn't feel like something that could be ignored. It was clearly a serious threat. Jaehyun couldn't help but worry about his own family, filled with a desire to see them again as soon as possible. But he also knew that this longing wasn't just his. The others had their loved ones and personal stakes too. Even so, he tried to push that thought away, convincing himself that saving his own family had to come first, above everything and everyone else. With his hands trembling, he finally chose an option from the system window. A new mission was created for the group. The goal was to build a tomb with a 1-hour time limit. The reward was a small amount of experience, and the mission came with no punishments. When the archer read the message, she became even more shaken. A sense of hopelessness and deep grief took over her body, weighing down her spirit. Meanwhile, from afar, Jaehyun watched silently, filled with regret, observing the whole painful scene through his supreme eye ability. Eventually, the tomb was completed. The whole group now stood in front of it, quiet and sad. Dongjeon turned to the archer and gently asked if she was really okay with all of this. She replied firmly that her father would have wanted it this way. She explained that he was obsessed with his job, always talking about how he wanted to be buried near the railway tracks when he died. Then, holding a metal plate with her father's name on it, she remembered how as a child she thought that wish was ridiculous. But now she had fulfilled it. He was resting exactly where he always said he wanted to be, and the metal plate with his name on it marked the spot. From a distance, Jaehyun was hit by a sudden, troubling thought. Maybe one day this same pain might become his own. He could only hope that their sorrow would never become his. It was exactly because of that fear that he made a decision to protect them no matter what. Looking back at the system screen, he realized something. To do that, he was going to need stronger people by his side. And so, in that moment, he made up his mind. The person who mattered most now was... But the scene changed before the thought was finished. Somewhere else, a goblin was hit by a man who had the power of water. At that instant, the system showed a message. The loyalty of citizen Jun Hyuk had passed 30, and he now qualified to be registered as a vassal. Immediately afterward, another message confirmed his successful registration. A woman appeared behind him, getting his attention and telling him that his body was glowing. He quickly looked down at his hands and was amazed by what he saw. He became completely intrigued, wondering what it all could mean. At that moment, the system said he had reached level 40 and had gotten the titles of 12th Bell Knight and Mage. He now had 59 trust and 51 loyalty points, and his awakened skills were related to water manipulation. Shortly after that, a new mission appeared. The power of mage abilities had been increased by 100%. One of his new skills, Water Bomb, A rank, let him summon high-temperature compressed water that exploded with a force that depended on how much mana he used. The other skill, Water Control, S rank, gave him the ability to freely control water using mental energy. The system then set the goal: use these skills in 10 minutes. The reward was an increase in mental power. The punishment for failure was mental exhaustion. Standing there, Jun Hyuk was stunned by what he saw in front of him. The mission message appeared again. As he read it, someone nearby asked if he was okay, but he replied by asking for a moment. A smile slowly spread across his face as he began to understand the mission. He quickly realized there were more than enough enemies nearby to use his powers on. Without delay, water started to appear around him, beginning the challenge. A massive sphere of water formed in front of everyone, leaving the goblins completely shocked and unprepared. Then with confidence, Jun Hyuk said the command, "Water Bomb." He threw it forward, hitting the group of goblins without mercy. The resulting explosion created a crater in the ground, leaving every single one of them dead as Jun Hyuk watched in silence. He held out his hand again, activating the water control ability. With strong focus, he began to lift the drops of water into the air. What happened next surprised two men who were quietly watching everything. The man wearing a black coat asked in complete disbelief if it was really Jun Hyuk doing all of that. The other man confirmed it, saying that what they were seeing was indeed Jun Hyuk's power. With a smile on his face, Jun Hyuk let the tiny drops fall slowly, like gentle rain, still under his complete control. Immediately after, he fell to his knees on the ground, lifted his arms up, and started to give thanks for the kindness he had just experienced. The two men, now even more confused, started to wonder aloud whether he might be losing his mind. At that exact moment, the system showed a message saying that both his trust and loyalty had increased, that the mission had been successfully completed, and that 70,251 won had been used. Seeing all of this, Jaehyun was completely taken aback. He really didn't expect an S-rank skill to be awakened in that way. With this event, Jun Hyuk became the second person to have an S-rank skill after Yeonju. Jaehyun started to think, considering how surprising it was, especially since Jun Hyuk's original ability was just B rank, a skill that used mental energy to make water. He hadn't imagined it would get so much better. Now he wondered if this huge growth was because of Jun Hyuk's high level. Standing in front of the system window, he admitted to himself that this outcome was unexpected, but he was happy with the result he had gotten. Internally, he remembered that when the ability was still B rank, he would use mental energy to create water in any form. Now he wondered how this type of use fit into the overall strategy, the metaphorical board of pieces. He noted that in Donggyun's group, there was no need to add a new piece, since the team was already well balanced. As he thought about what his next move should be, Jaehyun kept staring at the screen. The screen now showed a message about a goblin hunt. Level 6 goblins were being eliminated one by one, and both experience points and money were being added to the account. Reading this message left Jaehyun in shock. It was already late, yet there were still people out there hunting. Suddenly, the system showed another message. The skill level had increased, and the declaration of return to home had now reached level 20. With this, 3 more skill points had been gained, along with a brand new ability. Jaehyun went into a state of panic as he read the latest update. The system also told him that the territory was expanding, and with that expansion came an intense, unbearable pain that spread through his whole body. He screamed, overwhelmed by the pain, while Yejin watched in terror, completely unsure what she should do. The pain became excruciating, but despite it, the territory kept expanding further and further without stopping. With his vision blurry, Jaehyun barely managed to see Yejin as she urgently asked if he was okay. Jaehyun was overwhelmed by a pain much greater than any he had ever felt before. It felt as though huge needles were tearing through his body, ripping him apart from the inside out. Yejin kept going, her voice filled with desperation, telling him to breathe. Frantically, she asked what she could do to help him in that critical moment, visibly shaken and desperate to ease his suffering. Jaehyun forced his eyes open, his mind clouded and dazed. Through his blurry sight, he caught a glimpse of her face, partly hidden by the haze of confusion and the relentless pain. Startled, he realized she was getting dangerously close to his face, inching toward him with a clear intention. With a strained voice, he asked her what exactly she thought she was doing. Embarrassed and flustered, Yejin immediately backed away in a hurry, apologizing a lot. She quickly explained that for a moment she was afraid he had stopped breathing and was about to do CPR on him, but before she could continue, Jaehyun cut her off, firmly telling her that he was fine. Behind him, Blackie was crying, visibly upset and worried. Jaehyun reached out, gently stroking Blackie to calm him down, softly repeating that everything was going to be all right. Still getting his composure back, Jaehyun activated his ability, Supreme Eyes. Through the lens of his awakened power, he watched the expansion happening and was immediately taken aback by how huge it was. The zone had spread both to the west and to the north, taking over streets within a full 1-kilometer radius around the complex. Lying on the ground, he finally understood the real reason for the overwhelming pain he had just gone through. The territory had expanded to its biggest size yet. Turning his attention to the system's screen, Jaehyun reflected that no matter how exhausted and drained he felt, now was definitely not the time to rest. The system showed a message saying he had earned 3 skill points for reaching level 20. Jaehyun had already decided which ability he would upgrade next. He chose to improve the skill he considered the most important for the current operation, Supreme Recluse's Eyes. Immediately after making his choice, the system notified him that Supreme Eyes had reached level 4. Soon after, a new message appeared on the screen, telling him that a multi-vision function had been unlocked and added to the ability. With this new feature, Jaehyun felt his field of vision expand dramatically, as though he were now surrounded by countless CCTV monitors, each showing a different view. However, he quickly noticed that keeping this expanded vision active put a significant strain on his focus. He realized that handling 3 simultaneous views was his current limit. Once again, Jaehyun checked the system and saw that he still had 2 skill points left. He decided to invest them in enhancing the skill known as Preservation of Dignity. Moments later, the system showed an update saying that the skill had now reached level 5 and that a new feature called Mystic Draw had been activated. In addition, he was given a reward of 300 crystals, which caught him completely by surprise. Shortly after, the system clarified that it was through this Mystic Draw feature that he had gotten those 300 crystals. Jaehyun found no reason to reject the unexpected gift, so he clicked on the message to accept them. As soon as he did, a bright circle formed on the ground beneath him. The circle gave off a light so intense that it was uncomfortable for Yejin, Blackie, and even Jaehyun himself, forcing them to shield their eyes. After a few moments, the circle of light disappeared, yet a concentrated, powerful glow remained in the air. From within this brilliant light, an object began to appear. It was a ring. The system quickly told him that this was a communication ring, made specifically to send Jaehyun's voice directly to his vassals. Jaehyun slid the ring onto his his finger, still unsure about its practical use. As he thought about its function, it became clear to him that its ability to project his voice could be perfectly suited for Dabin. But then he remembered that Dabin had already been officially registered as one of his vassals. He went into the vassal management interface in the system, which showed detailed information about Dabin: level 25 holding the title of 11th servant, trust at 77, loyalty at 100, and a newly awakened skill, telepathy. Stunned by Dabin's new ability, Jaehyun admitted to himself that telepathy was indeed the perfect skill for someone with such communication-driven responsibilities. Suddenly, through the multi-vision function of his ability, Jaehyun saw a troubling scene. 50 people were crammed together, sharing a single housing unit to sleep in. Inside that crowded unit, Dabin tried to explain to the agitated group that the situation was only temporary. However, her words were met with anger and indignation, as if she were treating them like they were unimportant. One man, visibly furious, raised his voice and shouted, reminding her that they had all seen countless empty houses along the way. He demanded to know what she was even talking about, as though her excuses were completely unreasonable. Clenching their fists in frustration, several others stepped forward, insisting that at least the children should be allowed to sleep comfortably. They demanded that some of the vacant rooms be opened up, so everyone could rest properly after enduring so much. Overwhelmed by the escalating situation that was getting out of control, Dabin quickly apologized, struggling to stay calm as she explained that current policy did not allow for such allocations. The whole time, from a distance, Jaehyun watched everything unfold in silence through his supreme eyes. At that moment, the system showed a new message. A skill called Supreme Recluse's Door had been activated. With this, Jaehyun could now connect to and control all doors within the territory he had claimed as his own. Back inside the unit, just as Dabin was desperately trying to get the situation under control, a door suddenly swung open on its own. Annoyed and suspicious, one of the men immediately questioned the nerve of someone barging into someone else's home during an emergency. He reminded everyone that in times like these, people should be helping each other, not creating pointless conflicts and divisions. He demanded to know why so much unnecessary resistance was being put up against such a basic request. At that precise moment, Jaehyun stepped through the open door, catching Dabin completely by surprise. He turned to the man, his expression firm, and declared bluntly that if the man disagreed with the house rules, then he was more than welcome to leave his house immediately. The man, stunned by Jaehyun's words, demanded that he repeat what he just said, but Jaehyun, without the slightest hesitation, simply proceeded to kick him out on the spot. Seeing this sudden and firm action, the rest of the group started mumbling among themselves, noting how things had suddenly calmed down. Jaehyun then turned to face them all and asked a sharp question, asking if anyone else had complaints they wanted to bring up. With a cold and determined tone, he announced that from that moment on, the electricity, water, and gas supply to that entire unit would be cut off. Hearing this, a young woman, visibly alarmed, asked if he was serious about such an extreme measure. Jaehyun looked her in the eyes and responded shortly that, in fact, that's exactly the question he wanted to ask them. With a firm look, he stated that it was no coincidence they appeared right after the giant fell. He then asked if they came because they thought this place was capable, just like so many others who arrived every single day with the exact same mindset and expectations. His words hit the group like a bolt of harsh reality, leaving them momentarily speechless. But Jaehyun didn't stop there. He continued explaining that giving in to such demands would lead to 3 major problems. First, all the empty rooms would eventually run out, making it impossible to fit in new people who genuinely needed a place to stay. Second, the residents who had been living there, those who were already settled and following the rules, would start to feel disrespected. And third, once they gave in to one demand, the cycle of requests would never end. With absolute ruthlessness, Jaehyun raised his voice and declared that the basic rights and welfare they expected to find there simply did not exist. He stressed that the South Korean government had already fallen, and that he, standing before them, was not the representative of anyone's ideals or dreams. He admitted that some might see him as a tyrant, abusing his power, but he warned them that the world had become far too brutal, far too unforgiving, for naive ideals like rights and welfare to survive without being fought for and earned. He pointed out that if they wanted to have such privileges, they had to first prove they were worthy of them. He went on to explain that the other survivors, those who arrived before them, were enduring extremely harsh conditions, organizing rotating shifts just to get some rest. And despite all the discomfort and hardship, these people were still making sure to care for the children and the weakest among them, choosing to fight for survival as a community. Finally, Jaehyun gave a firm and non-negotiable order. They were to return immediately to the accommodations that had been set aside for them. He warned them that if they refused to follow, they would be setting themselves up to lose even more than what had already been taken from them. Hearing those words, the group immediately stepped back. Dabin, feeling a wave of relief, let out a soft sigh and thanked Jaehyun for helping her in that situation. However, he replied that there was no need for thanks. In fact, he insisted that he was the one who should be grateful to her. His unexpected response left Dabin momentarily taken aback, trying to understand what he really meant by that. It was then that Jaehyun pointed out that maybe she too might be able to do something similar to what he had just done. He asked if she knew about telepathy, and then told her to think of a person she wanted to talk to, imagining herself speaking to them mentally as if having a conversation inside her mind. Dabin closed her eyes, focusing all her concentration. A short while later, a faint aura started to surround her body. Happy with the result, Jaehyun emphasized that she would need to learn the exact conditions and limits of this ability, and that the best way to do so was through frequent practice. At that moment, someone with trembling hands gave a small wave and called out for Jaehyun. Both he and Dabin turned to see a man who looked nervous, standing with his head lowered. Jaehyun asked if the man still had something he wanted to say. The man, clearly frustrated but determined, mind, admitted that he knew he was being bold, but he needed to ask if Jaehyun might consider forgiving the friend who had been kicked out earlier. Jaehyun questioned why he would do such a thing. The man explained that Yoonsik, the one who was expelled, was the only person who dared to say what everyone else was already thinking, and he didn't think it was fair for Yoonsik to be the only one punished. He then leaned forward respectfully and said that he would accept any punishment himself, but begged Jaehyun to show mercy toward Yoonsik. Jaehyun silently thought about whether it was time to bring Sung Yoonsik back, knowing deep down that it was not right to take someone's life just to set an example for others. Firm in his decision, he opened the system and noticed that the man was still standing in front of the door, not having gone anywhere. Looking directly at him, Jaehyun asked for his name. The man answered that he was called Kyung-hoon. Jaehyun then told him that he would give Yoonsik his citizenship back. Kyung-hoon was taken aback when Jaehyun went on to say that he would also restore electricity and water service, though not the gas supply. Before Kyung-hoon could respond, Jaehyun added that he was doing this out of respect for the man's courage, and warned that there would be no second chances, and everyone needed to understand that clearly. Right after, the system sent a message that Yoonsik's citizenship had been officially restored. Kyung-hoon, visibly relieved, hurried back to his quarters. Soon afterward, another message appeared, telling Jaehyun that Kyung-hoon's trust in him had increased. For a moment, Jaehyun thought about restoring the gas supply as well, but he knew that if he did, the punishment for what had happened would lose its intended effect. His thoughts were interrupted when Dabin said he seemed to be a warm-hearted person. Jaehyun asked if she was really giving him a compliment, to which she confirmed with a smile. He thanked her, but she playfully teased that he seemed to be getting embarrassed. Changing the subject, Jaehyun asked her to inspect the facilities in 3 buildings, adding that he wanted to have one in each of the 25 buildings. The idea left Dabin utterly surprised. Without hesitation, she asked how many members he currently had. Jaehyun explained that if it became possible to expand to 100 people, he could assign 4 to manage each building. Dabin's eyes lit up with interest, and she declared that she would be willing to pay 100,000 won per day for each person, promising him that with that kind of scale, everything would run smoothly. As they spoke, someone came from behind. Jaehyun and Dabin turned and asked if the newcomer was new to the area. The man confirmed and asked if Jaehyun might need a medical team on site. He then introduced himself as Sung Min, an associate professor of nephrology at Busan Park Hospital. After hearing his introduction, Jaehyun commented that he had let the medical team go for the time being, as he believed high-ranking people needed proper treatment. He then turned to Dabin and asked what she thought about giving a room for the team and turning it into a hospital. She replied that it seemed like a good idea. Seizing the moment, Jaehyun noted that if they looked around carefully, they could probably find a good number of nurses. He also said that putting the medical team together and managing it would be her responsibility. Dabin, clearly excited, promised that he could count on her for that. Afterward, Jaehyun opened the door and went back to where Yejin was waiting. She asked if he had managed to solve the problem, and with a smile he confirmed that he had. Without wasting any time, he activated his eyes of the absolute ability. When Yejin saw the Dongjin group, she asked if they had already left. Jaehyun quickly realized they were on their way to Jigalki Station, and that there were no issues there. He then opened the system again to finish what he had been working on. As he had expected, the final location available for investing his skill points was the absolute warehouse. The system sent a message saying that the skill had reached level 2, increasing its capacity to 200 kilograms, and adding a new feature called state preservation. The description clarified that this function would keep the exact movement and condition of an item as it was the very moment it was stored. Realizing that the capacity had now doubled, Jaehyun immediately understood that he could use the warehouse much more freely and strategically. His thoughts quickly went to the true potential of this new function. It didn't take long for him to realize that, if used correctly, it could become something extremely powerful. Without hesitation, he opened the store and bought an S&W revolver, along with 100 rounds of .38 caliber ammunition, which started to appear in front of him. He figured that if the movement of the firing mechanism was kept, then upon summoning the warehouse, the action would pick up exactly from where it had been paused. With the gun in his hand, he held out his arm and calmly told Yejin to cover her ears for a moment. She stared at him in alarm, her unease growing quickly when she noticed he was holding a gun. Jaehyun reassured her that it would be over quickly, and with his finger on the trigger, he gave the command, "Store in the warehouse." Immediately afterward, he pulled the trigger. The gunshot cracked loudly through the room, echoing with force, but almost instantly, the system confirmed that the storage was flawless. Feeling a surge of excitement, Jaehyun stepped out onto the balcony of the building, his mind already testing the possibilities of his prediction, while Yejin remained frozen in shock at what she had just seen. Holding out his hand, he focused hard and gave the command, "Summon." From the system's storage window, a stream of bullets started to pour out at remarkable speed. Jaehyun watched, impressed as his idea came to life exactly as planned. This, after all, was an absolutely perfect way to help Dongjin's group, who were in a fight at Jigalki Station. There, goblins were being hit one after another by the incoming bullets, falling to the ground quickly. Those that survived the initial attack turned and ran in terror, leaving Dongjin's group finally alone. Now, with new conviction and confidence, Dongjin declared that they had at last arrived at Jigalki Station. On the other side, Jaehyun tried to talk to the group, asking if they could hear his voice. Dongjin was caught off guard, genuinely surprised to hear him so clearly. Watching Dongjin's startled reaction, Jaehyun quickly figured out that everyone in the group must be hearing his voice without any trouble. With that in mind, he explained that communication would continue that way from now on, and he told them all to go to exit number 2. When they finally reached the exit, Dongjin looked around carefully, observing the surroundings, which were now completely ruined. From a distance, Jaehyun thought silently about the fact that from this moment on, they were stepping into truly unknown territory, where every path could hide a threat. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Yejin was still struggling to reconnect with the rats at the central hub, but despite her efforts, she hadn't succeeded. Without that crucial connection, the group moved forward blindly, completely unprepared for whatever might be waiting for them. In the middle of this uncertainty, Dongjian broke the silence, saying the question that was on everyone's mind: where should we go now? Jaehyun gave them directions with calm determination, guiding them toward the large road that stretched to the left. He explained that if they followed it for about 1 kilometer, it should bring them closer to their destination. At that very moment, something suddenly appeared, getting Dongjian's immediate attention. Through the gleaming reflection in the eyes of the creatures, it became clear that the group was in a panic. They scrambled desperately, trying to get away from the vicious fangs of the beast. Dongjian, overwhelmed by discouragement, remembered how exhausting and dangerous it had been to face the fishmen earlier, and how they had barely managed to get away alive. Now, standing before another huge challenge, he was face to face with a colossal shark. In an instant, the creature opened its huge jaws, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth ready to tear them apart. Dongjian reacted by instinct, grabbing a heavy iron bar to protect himself from the coming strike. The man with glasses raised his weapon and let loose a storm of gunfire at the shark, the bullets hitting its body, leaving the beast dazed and confused. Taking this chance, Dongjian charged forward with determination, giving a decisive and powerful blow directly against the terrifying shark's fin. At the same time, the werebear woman threw herself into the fight, leaping with unrestrained fury. She crashed down on the monster's head with brutal force, giving it a devastating wound. Almost instantly, the system sent a message announcing that a level 24 shark had been successfully hunted. Experience points were added, and a sum of money was automatically deposited as a reward. Afterward, Dongjian signaled to the man with glasses. She focused hard, connecting her mind to her raven, Blackie, and immediately got a sweeping aerial view of the area. The man with glasses froze, stunned by what he saw through the shared vision. Without hesitation, he warned the group that the whole surrounding area seemed to be filled with fish. At that tense moment, yet another figure suddenly appeared, and the whole group found themselves staring directly at an overwhelming presence. Almost at the same time, as Deoksu looked up, he noticed movement above them. It was not a single creature, but countless blue figures that looked like swordfish quickly closing in from the sky. The group got ready for yet another immediate fight. As the creatures got dangerously close, Dongjian called upon Deoksu. He raised his halberd high, focusing his energy, and his armor activated with a flash of power. In the exact moment Deoksu struck with deadly accuracy, his blow landed true. The system immediately said that a sky blue marlin had been successfully hunted, rewarding them with extra experience points and money. Without a moment's pause, the archer woman let loose a flurry of arrows, her shots rapid and unrelenting, cutting down the creatures that stubbornly lingered in the air. Her voice rang out with total conviction, declaring that the group would not move an inch until every single one of these enemies was gone. But suddenly, something unexpected caught her attention. It was the healer. Despite shooting directly at one of the sky blue marlins, the massive creature kept coming steadily and without being shaken, heading straight for her. Her ammunition eventually ran out, and she realized with growing fear that the creature kept coming closer with every second. At that precise moment, the system sent a message announcing the summoning of storage. Immediately, bullets appeared and struck the creature with sharp precision. The system then reported that a level 17 sky blue marlin had been successfully hunted, giving experience points and depositing the amount of 231,733 won into the account. Upon reading the message, Jaehyun noticed with frustration that whenever he personally fired the weapon, the payment ended up being lower than expected. With determination, he called out to Yejin. He demanded that she stop trying to connect with the rats and instead focus her efforts on shooting in his place. Without hesitation, he placed the weapon firmly into her hands, though she instantly felt insecure and unsure, nervously asking where exactly she should aim. Getting to her feet, she hesitated, but Jaehyun calmly said that anywhere she pointed would be good enough. Gathering her courage, Yejin fired her very first shot, and immediately the system announced the deposit into storage. Taking the chance, Jaehyun focused hard and commanded that the bullets fired by her be sent into the ongoing battle. Right after his command, countless system windows opened in front of them, acting as gateways through which the bullets traveled, going directly into the battlefield and hitting their targets. The system then said that another level 17 sky blue marlin had been hunted, giving extra experience points and depositing more money. In the middle of the situation, Yejin urgently warned Jaehyun to step aside and reload quickly so that the assault could continue without delay. Understanding the urgency of the moment, Jaehyun thought silently that the overall efficiency of the operation had now increased for the 6th time. Even though he felt real pity for Yejin, who was clearly overwhelmed, he knew deep down that this approach was absolutely necessary. At that instant, the door swung open. Hiran, known as the Poison Girl, entered the scene, her expression filled with curiosity as she took in the chaotic sight. Upon noticing Yejin firing repeatedly, she asked the reason for the gunfire, trying to figure out whether what she was seeing was real or just some kind of illusion. In the middle of the chaos, a massive creature suddenly tried to attack. However, both Dongjion and the werebear reacted quickly, dodging the violent attack just in time. The creature revealed itself to be red, with the huge and terrifying form of a monstrous crab. Distressed and exasperated, Dongjion asked aloud whether this was some kind of twisted joke, and desperately questioned if they were really expected to try and defeat such a horrifying monster. The giant crab prepared to attack, raising its massive limbs with a menacing weight. It struck down with such force that the ground itself shook violently, but Dongjion and the werebear woman managed to dodge in time, barely escaping the devastating blow. Her eyes stayed firmly on the target, burning with determination. The werebear woman let out a powerful cry, calling for the healer. He immediately immediately understood the signal, raised his hand, and wrapped her in a radiant aura. Covered in that energy, her body shot forward with explosive speed. With fierceness, she grabbed hold of part of the creature's massive structure, opened her mouth wide, and filled with fury, sank her fangs deep into its flesh. At the same time, Dongjun charged toward the monstrous enemy, gripping a long iron rod with both hands. At just the right moment, he stopped his sprint and threw the weapon with precise strength, sending it flying straight into the target and piercing the very center of its head. From behind the crab, the werebear woman emerged once again, moving relentlessly, her determination unshaken and fixed entirely on her goal. She unleashed a decisive strike on the creature and quickly pulled back. To her shock, however, she realized that the beast was completely unharmed. Its thick shell was not affected by her attack. Then Byung-ho shouted for everyone to fall back. From above, he raised his weapon, held it firmly, and focused all his attention on the crab. Without stopping, he began firing, letting loose a relentless storm of bullets that rained down on the creature's dreadful body. Amid that chaos, Dongjian commented on the insane durability of the enemy, his voice heavy with frustration, and he questioned what they should possibly do now. His eyes stayed on the beast, and for a fleeting moment, doubt took hold of him, as he wondered if there was truly no chance of victory. At a certain distance, carefully watching everything, Jaehyun noticed something crucial. He realized that this creature was not like the ordinary enemies they had faced before. What they needed was not just sharp hits, but a blow of overwhelming impact, something heavy and crushing like a hammer. Accepting this, he began to search frantically for an object that could deliver that kind of force. His eyes scanned every corner until finally he found a gem. A satisfied smile spread across his face, for he had found exactly what he was looking for. The system quickly told him of an item being stored in the deposit. Through his ability of communication, Jaehyun told the werebear woman that when he gave the signal, she had to leap onto the crab's shell because he had found something that could break through it. Soon after, Jaehyun raised his hand and summoned a heavy barbell, which started to appear right in front of him. Internally, he apologized to the boy who used to own it, silently promising that he would buy a new one for him later. His plan was clear. First, he let the heavy bar fall freely, letting gravity build up its full energy, and only then did he store it in the deposit. Immediately afterward, Jaehyun brought the bar back again. It shot forth through the system's window and flew toward the center of the crab's head. At that exact moment, he used his communication skill and gave the long-awaited signal to the werebear woman. The bar pierced the target with brutal force, splitting open its head and sending streams of blood spurting outward. Without hesitation, the werebear woman launched herself straight at the point of impact. Her claws were ready, sharpened and gleaming, her body fueled entirely by determination and fury. She closed the distance with fierce speed and struck with deadly precision, delivering the finishing blow that successfully ended the beast. The system immediately registered the successful hunt of the giant crab, level 35, giving experience points and depositing money into their account. Yet even after their victory, the path home looked like nothing less than a chaotic marketplace of sea monsters. Every kind of fish and crab-like abomination kept attacking mercilessly without a break. Jaehyun understood that without his support, the group would have faced countless situations that could have ended in tragedy. He accepted, with heavy resignation, that this place was simply too much to handle, even for Dongjian's group. He thought about how, despite everyone being awakened and armed, they still struggled just to go a single kilometer. Now he had to finally admit to himself that the chances of his family being alive were almost zero. The closer he got to his home, the stronger the fear grew inside him. Still, even if there was just a 1% chance, he knew he couldn't let himself lose hope. Using his ability, he looked at the surroundings and noticed a ruined but familiar street. He thought that just beyond the narrow alley was his home, but suddenly, something unusual caught his attention: a tree. Through his communication skill, he told the group to stop immediately. He knew this city well. It was the place where he was born and raised, and he was sure of what belonged there and what did not. Observing carefully, he realized that there had never been a tree like that on the main road. And even if there had been, the city would never have left it standing there. This meant that the tree appeared only after the world had fallen apart. Using his ability once more, Jaehyun pointed out the strange thing to everyone. He asked if they too could see the massive tree ahead. The group confirmed that they could. Jaehyun then declared firmly that the tree was not what it seemed. It was a monster. He told them to get ready for an attack. At that very moment, something strange happened. A single enormous eye opened on the trunk of the tree. In front of the group, the figure woke up, and everything around them started to shake, as if the world itself were backing away from its presence. The archer remained firm, her gaze fixed upward. A shot was released, flying toward the monster and piercing a part of its trunk. Yet that was not enough to stop it. With each passing instant, it rose higher, lifting itself from the ground as though leaving the very surface that once held it. Faced with that overwhelming threat, Dongjun, gathering all his focus, threw an iron bar against the tree, hitting the target with perfect precision. But even then, the colossal creature endured, resisting the blows and continuing to advance, getting ever closer. Its amazing resilience shocked Dongjun, who could hardly believe what he was seeing. Meanwhile, Byung-ho teleported behind the tree and quickly raised his weapon, letting loose a barrage of shots that hit the monster one after another. At that same moment, the werebear woman charged forward, throwing herself into the fight against the creature in the middle of its relentless attacks. Her sharp claws tore into the wood, ripping away splinters and peeling its bark with pure violence. The tree, however, responded by summoning from its depths a living mass of trunks and roots, twisting and writhing as they surged toward the werebear. The branches wrapped around her her body, lifting her into the air and holding her still with a crushing force. Dong Jion and the others, horrified, cried out to her, but the tree held her fast, hanging her high above them all, like a living trophy captured within its domain. Without hesitation, it began to release branches sharpened like spears, twisting dangerously as they pushed toward the werebear. Overcome with despair, she let out a cry, her voice filled with anguish. At that instant, Byung-ho appeared in front of her, putting himself in her defense. The werebear woman begged him to step back, pleading for him not to put himself in danger, yet he stood his ground, unwavering, ready to face the piercing tip of the branch that came ever nearer. But to his surprise, the monster stopped, its branches pulled back, going back into the surface. On the other side, Jae-hyun too was taken aback by the tree's sudden withdrawal. The unexpected pause forced him to think about what could have caused such a change. Through his communication ability, Jae-hyun ordered Dongyeon to have Yeonju retreat, while the others kept going toward the creature. Dongyeon hesitated, questioning if it should really be only Yeonju who went back, but Jae-hyun confirmed without faltering, so Dongjin gave the command. While the companions got ready to resume the attack, she obeyed and stepped back as told. From a distance, Jae-hyun watched carefully, analyzing the scene and wondering if the reason behind the creature's withdrawal was indeed what he suspected. Deoksu on his side prepared himself, double-checking that everything was under control. At that moment, the great tree started to move once more, and as everyone got ready for combat, confusion spread among them as they asked themselves what was really happening. Then the monster slowly returned to its original place, as though nothing had happened. Jae-hyun, ever watchful, began to think, could it be that the creature doesn't attack humans at all? He noticed that ever since Yeonju had taken on her werebear form, the monster had aimed its aggression only at her. Gradually, the conclusion took shape in his mind. Maybe it was specifically the werebear form that made the creature angry. Jae-hyun continued to watch closely, but suddenly the massive tree rose once again. From the other side, a shark appeared, charging fiercely toward the tree with its teeth showing wide. The branches came out once more, striking the shark deep. From this, Jae-hyun felt certain the tree did not attack humans. With this realization, he commanded the group to ignore the creature and keep going, since it showed no hostility toward them. Dongjeon accepted the order, and the group moved on, step by step, until something stopped their progress. Dongjeon immediately signaled Jae-hyun, who silently prayed that the exact location of the tree would not be revealed. The group stood before the gigantic tree, questioning whether they had arrived at the wrong place. With trembling hands, Jae-hyun confirmed there was no mistake. This was indeed the place where his father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother were supposed to be. Rage took over him, and he became convinced that this monstrous tree had no right to be in that sacred space. Firmly, he decided it had to be destroyed immediately. His plan was to surround it with gasoline and set it on fire, certain that only by turning it to ashes would he feel satisfied. He realized that Dongyeon's group could be summoned not only by his own hand, but also through his vassals, which meant the destruction could begin without delay. At that moment, a system message revealed the presence of one of Jaehyun's blood relatives nearby. Suddenly, a voice rang out, shouting to know who was there. A blinding light shone on the group, forcing them to shield their eyes. An old man emerged, looking at each of them carefully, accompanied by two other figures. Tell me what you thought of this manhwa. What rating would you give this story? I found it very different from all the others I've read. Like the video to help me bring you more delicious content.